and welcome everyone back to Chaos Child, session number 2. And we now have a better idea of what we're in for in terms of this game. Wild murders, some interesting content, and some strange delusions. But hey, that's something. Thank you so much, Smash Matt, for the 100 bits, saying it's a good thing they got Best Animated Feature out of the way. First for the Oscars means I don't have to sit through Jimmy Kimmel's terrible shtick for too long. A shame Puss in Boots The Last Wish didn't win, but Del Toro's Pinocchio earned it. Plus, that gave Del Toro a nice animation and cinema speech along with it. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something he's been, advocating for a while. But yes, thank you so much for that, Smash Matt. And before we get into Chaos Child too deeply, I want to do a bit of housekeeping things. First of all, in regards to Chaos Child, thank you so much, Fa56, for the Tier 1 subscription, saying, hello to all Daylight Savers users. Here's something at 8 p.m. where I'm at. Yeah, an hour earlier for you. And yeah, a bit of a later, it's a weird, Daylight Savings is weird. But yes, so some things to note about this one, as many of you who tried, Cat Evie, thank you very much for the 100 bits, saying, Cool Cat Press issue 2023 article, Japanese school dress code, all female students are required to wear white undies with their uniforms. Teachers inspect them by having them pull down the undies so they're visible below the skirt. Anime offers fan service by having patterned colored garments. Wow. Okay. Oh gosh. But yes, so for those of you who may have tried to watch the Twitch VOD last week, you might have noticed that a few bits got muted, and that is not there's a reason for that. The VOD on YouTube got claimed basically immediately in multiple places from mages. So yeah, there's no extra money making on this one for this. And yes, you did warn me, Sumomoeni. So there is that aspect to it, which is all the more reason why I won't be going for like the true ending or anything like that. We're going to go through the basic one and just see what we come up with. And, if we were going for the true ending, one of the things I have seen recommended is, in order to get to that faster, to watch both the good and bad delusions, to get those out of the way. That way you can fast forward those as well, because even though you don't save them, you do see their outcomes. So there is that aspect. So yeah, we're not going for the true ending. We're just going straight to it, see what ending we get. And yeah. Otherwise, the other thing you might have seen on my Twitter, I posted on Twitter, our next short game is supposed to be Outer Wilds. And I was under the assumption that was on Game Pass, which I do have. But apparently it left Game Pass in December, which is what caused me. I decided I don't have it. We'll see when I have some extra money to get it, since I just spent, paid money to get this game. And I don't have a lot of extra. So that I decided to delay Outer Wilds. But, so Warrior World would be next, since I do own that one. But as I was talking about this, a very lovely viewer reached out to me and actually gifted me a copy of Outer Wilds. So I now own Outer Wilds, but I already said previously on Twitter that we'd be going to Warrior World next. So I guess the question is, I'm going to be doing one. It's going to be one and then the other. But what is our what is the better? Should I stick with the previous order, or should I stick with Warrior World first, since I announced that one? So yeah, yeah, you can go ahead and make a poll, Ryan, if you'd like to, just to see. But yeah, I do know that Super Wario World is super short. So, yeah. So I just wanted to lay that out there as well. And I'm pretty sure there's no music going on at the moment. Yeah, there is none. So let's take a look here what everybody's deciding. Okay. Looks like most want to stick with Wario World first. So yeah, we will do that. Okay, cool. So with all that out of the way, we will stick to that order. And let's dive into Chaos Child and see what we're in for. All right. So last time we left off, we had learned the connection that the murders that we had witnessed happened on the same dates as the previous murders in the previous game, which otherwise has no real connections to this one. We were waiting to see if it is a case and not just coincidence, to see if this actually... poll's not over yet. Either way, we'll see. We're just going to see how that goes. So, okay, it looks like Wario World is going to be... we'll do Wario World first, then Outer Wilds, and then next. So we'll still be doing them. It's just swapping them. That's all. So yeah, now we have the confirmation that it definitely seems to be patterned based on the old dates, as a new murder has happened at a love hotel in Dogenzaka, 5 minutes from Shibuya Station. So let's get to it. Do I have audio right? Should there be music right now? I can't tell. It's oddly quiet. I don't know. We'll find out. A few days ago, there had been some kind of suspicious fire here, and I'd come to do some reporting. The place was supposedly a love hotel spot, but even at night when business should have been booming, it wasn't particularly exciting. You heard a click? Okay, I'm not hearing a major click. During the day, when all the lights were turned off, if you didn't look at the signs, it wouldn't look very different from your average neighborhood. We'll see if... Yeah, no, I don't know if there's... Hold on. Okay, there is sound. There's just... For whatever reason, in this section, there's no sound in the game. There we go. All right. One of the buildings was a 4-story love hotel with the terrible name Fairies Dance. It faced a narrow street and there was no parking lot, so the police car was parked at a meter nearby. There we go. There we go. There it is. This way. Sarika was standing in front of a general store some distance away. She was supposed to be spending the day taking photos of the area around the last 2 crime scenes. What happened? I don't know. I passed by again near the 107 and he told me something was up here. I just don't get that guy. Where does he find out about this stuff? It's helpful, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. Gen was a homeless man I knew who had sold me all the books in my secret stash. He was a drunk who claimed to be of noble blood, but the stories he told me about his past didn't sound very noble at all. Yeah, somebody did say that apparently there's a fan patch to fix the dialogue errors, but I mean, it's mostly fine. It's not a big deal. The guy was a weirdo, but since he spent all of his time wandering around Shibuya, he knew a surprising amount of info about it. But it seems like something's really happening, though. The policeman who just went in looked like he was asking for backup. I see. I decided to start by taking a video of the outside of the hotel with my smartphone. You really run fast at times like these. Oh, I'm actually recording him. I left the 2 of them in the club room and they'd only just now caught up with me. They must have ran here. Ito especially was breathing very heavily. What? Kurisu came too? Kazuki had decided not to come, evidently. Of course not. I'd never seen her outside except when we were going to and from school. So, did something happen? Soulcaster, I have the message on the title itself. I figured that would handle things. To warn people that there's disturbing images. So we should be okay. I told Ito what I'd heard from Sarika. He seemed really disappointed. What? You're sure it's not just some couple that had a fight? Would you call reinforcements just for that? And today's the 29th, you know. I told you, you're overthinking this. Kurisu seemed upset. She glanced at the love hotels around her in disgust. Let's get back to school. This isn't a place where students are supposed to be. What if one of the security cameras spots us? Hey, Jade and Buck. She probably didn't want to get involved. Ever since the rebuilding, there had been more cameras around Shibuya than ever before, even around the love hotels. In our school uniforms, we probably stood out. Kurisu motioned for us to go home. And then... I saw something in the viewfinder. On the 3rd floor of the Love Hotel, the windows in one of the rooms facing the alley were open. The windows must have been all the way out. The windows must have been all the way open because the curtains were fluttering out.
No.
Hey, you normally don't open the windows in a place like this, do you? I asked Ito as I looked up at them. Yeah, probably not. I don't know. I've never been to one. Oh. Ito followed my gaze and saw it for himself. It felt suspicious. I'd never been to a love hotel either, so I didn't know. But normally you'd keep the windows shut, right? You wouldn't want people seeing or hearing what you were doing. And then, suddenly, I heard a sound from somewhere. It was a calming song with a simple melody. I took a closer listen. How's the game audio, by the way? Was it a music box? It definitely was. It was coming from the room with the open windows. It sounded like it was inviting us in. What was going on? Okay, audio's good. Perfect. Glad to hear it. I looked around. The building across from the open window was another love hotel, but it had no windows on that side. I couldn't look into the building like I'd done with the karaoke box last week. And I certainly couldn't climb my way up. Wait, what are you thinking? I must have had a pensive look on my face because Kurisu turned to me and asked, if we can get inside without them finding us. What? I looked over at the parking meters. There was still only one car. Okay. There should be a rear entrance somewhere, so let's do it before the police backup gets here. Ito, go around from that side. Okay. I'll take this side. Takaru, stop. Look at me. I began to go around the building, not waiting for Ito's answer, but Kurisu grabbed my arm. You can't do this. This is way beyond what a high school club should be involved in. Won't you listen to me? I mean, she's right. Crap. She was just a millimeter short of making that face again. And this is one of those dirty hotels too, isn't it? Also, what if you get caught up in something? What if you get caught up in something weird? Well, if we don't get caught up in something weird, then, we don't get a game. So we gotta go do weird. I knew all that, but I didn't want to give up. This might be my chance to get a real scoop. What if you get expelled? As your big sister, I can't let you put yourself in danger. Sister, we're not actually family, are we? Ooh, that seemed to hurt her. Instantly, Kurisu grabbed me by the collar with incredible force and brought her face so close to me that our foreheads touched. I could tell her cheeks were flushed. There was a small wordless growl from deep within her throat, and her arms were shaking a little as she held me. What was she trying to say? No, I knew what she was trying to say. But Kurisu didn't say it. Kurisu wasn't the sort of awful person who'd bring up the distant past to try and win an argument. And anyway, that was all over now. It wasn't either of our faults. Okay, we got a past. Soy Sauce says, one thing I like about the setup is that it addresses the trope of high schoolers getting involved in some sort of big crime investigation as something that isn't super logical. Embrace the chaos, child. Stop it. Yeah. What the? Weird wipe. Suddenly, Serica ran over and tackled Kurisu. The momentum slammed both of them into the ground. What the hell? Ow, Serica, what was that for? No fighting, non-Taku. The motto of the newspaper club is that all 5 of us are friends, right? No, that was never our motto. Shin, you need to stop them too. Oh, wait, where were you? Oh, that's right. This is no time for fighting, Taku. She suddenly hopped up like a cheap toy. The back door is open. What? I was thirsty, but I couldn't find a vending machine, so I decided to look inside the hotel, so I went around to the back door and opened it. Then I went inside and there was a vending machine, and I said to myself, way to go, fairies dance. And then I bought a drink and gulped it down and then said, wait a second. What? You always get ahead of yourself. That worked out. So, Taku, what's the plan? I could tell that Kurisu was glaring at me. But she didn't say anything. She couldn't say anything. Let's go together. If we pretend to be a couple, we might be able to fool them if it comes to that. Okay. She's just kind of up for anything, isn't she? As soon as the words were out of my mouth, Serica beckoned me to follow her. I did. Getting all big squall vibes at times. I didn't say it, but in my heart, I apologized to Kurisu as I went. Of course, she couldn't hear me, so she didn't say anything. The stairs are over there, though. We went inside the hotel from the rear entrance and hid behind the corner that led to the lobby. This was my first time inside a love hotel, and it was a lot less gaudy than I expected. The name was false advertising. There were no fairies and no one was dancing. Maybe the quiet atmosphere was a selling point? But... Homecoming Hero, Homecoming Hero with a highlighted message saying, Chaos Child, isn't that just having a toddler? Hope you're well. For me, it's projects, prepping to go to school with hopes of working with non-profits and lots of Zelda games. Never played Wind Waker and picked it up on Wii for the first time. Loving it. Oh, that's awesome. Congrats. Sound like a Scooby-Doo episode. Yeah, now we just need a ghost in a sheet to come out. Just send someone back here. What? No, ask Shinjo. The quiet was ruined by the sound of a police officer screaming into his phone. He was either confused or just excited, because he kept saying the same things over and over again. Something had happened after all. And something bad enough that he needed backup. This was my chance. If we could get to the scene before the place was overflowing with cops, we might be able to find an unexpected scoop. Yes, there's no doubt about it. I checked. But I can't decide that on my own. No, I told you. That's not what's going on. Damn it. That cop was in the way. Whether we took the stairs or the elevator, we needed to go through the lobby to get to them. Taku, let's go. Huh? Hurry. Wait. Serica took me by the arm as if we were a couple and entered the lobby without trying to hide at all. Hey, come on. She ignored me and walked straight for the stairs. Okay, the women of this game are so much more interesting than Takaru. Hey! The cop must have seen us because he yelled at us from behind. Shit. He probably hadn't seen our faces. Should we run? No, that would just make us look suspicious. I told you not to leave your rooms. Yes. No, sorry. It's okay. Forget that. I need that backup. He started to mumble into the phone. We crossed the lobby without looking back. And she's on top of things. Don't do anything too crazy. But you were right. We were able to fool him. That scared me. That was a close call. My heart was pounding so loud that the noise was making me sick. Could he not tell that we were high school students? No, even if he only saw us from behind, he'd be able to tell by our uniforms. Why didn't he arrest us? Maybe he was panicking so much that the thought never occurred to him. Okay, what's the next step? Serika let go of my arm and turned toward me. That's right. Now wasn't the time for thinking about other things. We don't know whether or not that room on the 3rd floor is what we're after, but we should start there. If that doesn't work, we try other places. Once the police backup arrives, we leave. But from the way that officer was acting, something was definitely up. We need to get photos before we go. Okay. It was quiet. The policeman's voice was still drifting up the stairs, but it only made the quiet seem more oppressive. Just like he'd said, the customers had probably been told not to leave their rooms. It was too late for it to matter now, but I was starting to feel a little scared. Come to think of it, if something had happened, maybe the killer was still here? Hey Taku, you're fighting with Non again, aren't you? Serika's voice was relaxed. I was grateful. I'd take any opportunity to relieve this tension. It wasn't really a fight. No, maybe it was. But you're still calling her Kurisu, right? I know how you feel, but isn't there something you can do? Until half a year ago, I'd called her Nono, her first name. After the incident that had caused me to leave the dorm, I'd never call her that again. As long as I kept calling her Kurisu, she'd keep being mad at me. It must have been hurting some important part of her. Taku? Oh. The next thing I knew, we were on the 3rd floor. We got backstory to discover. Serika had gotten ahead of me at some point and was poking her head around the corner and into the hallway. So we started calling her Yes Yes. Nobody's here, I think. Yes. Good. I took out my phone and got ready to record. I feel like we're in, Silent Hill territory. Almost. As soon as I went into the 3rd floor hallway, I found myself holding my breath. My heart was pounding even louder than when the cop had yelled at us. I tried to control myself and looked down the corridor. The rooms must have been very big because the gap between the doors was large. The floor was red, sinking into black as the hallway stretched away. I could hear the unpleasant sound of blowing air. They must have had the air conditioning on. Soy Sauce says, interesting parallel about Serika and Takaru with Chaos Head. In that game, the protagonist's name was Takumi, and he befriends a pink-haired girl who also calls him Taku. Oh, okay. I mean, it was mainly the music that got claimed, so we'll see, but I kind of have a feeling it'll still get claimed. We'll see what happens with this second one, but it is what it is. There were no windows, and there wasn't a lot of light, so the hallway looked pretty creepy, but there was nothing out of the ordinary about it otherwise. But still, it was strange. The air felt solid. It felt like someone would jump out from the shadows the second you let your guard down, or perhaps that there were other traps scattered everywhere along the floor. For a second, the floor seemed to be stained with blood, but I shook that image out of my mind. What was this? It was like the fear you feel in the darkness at night. Was it just because there was so little light? Aw, Eggroll, thank you very much for the 500 bits, saying, do you believe in ghosts? No? Well, I guess that hand on your shoulder isn't real then, huh? Oh, nice. That just reminds me of Amy when we went to a Halloween-themed event. Went to a scary No, Thought 56. No fear. With 300 bits. Thank you so much. No fear. Me is death. One fear. I don't think I can get death here. Well, I mean, there is dead people, so this is your fault. You're the murderer at this point. But yes, Amy was at we were at a thing. We were going through one of those scary things, scary walk through places, around Halloween, and she's like, as we were going through, she says to me, "This is so scary." And then all of a sudden, one of the people who happened to be nearby, she didn't see it all, came up behind her and went, "So am I." And she shrieked. Oh my God, it was so good. I'm glad you're enjoying Fire Emblem Engage, lass. Hi, Kiko. Why are you under the desk and whining? Are you scared? What the heck is up with you? What's wrong? Who wants to see a puppers? Puppers. For some reason, she wants to be underneath my desk. Go lay down. You're fine. Go lay down. Come on. Go lay down. Her tail's down and everything. I don't know what's up. Oh, there it's up, back up. Yeah, she's just sitting at my feet. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. No, it was worse than that. It felt like someone was watching me and enjoying my unease. It was like they were peering deep into my heart. Taku? I almost jumped off the ground with a start. Huh? What's wrong? Don't just talk to me like that. You scared the hell out of me. It's nothing. Hey, isn't this some kind of weird? I gestured with my head down the hallway. Sarika looked past me into the darkness. Well, it's creepy because it's all so dim, but isn't that just to set the mood? Sarika has a good head on her shoulder, apparently. Was it? Was that all? Was I being too sensitive? I tried flipping the light switch on the wall next to me, but nothing happened. Maybe the bulbs were burned out, or maybe it wasn't the switch for this hallway at all. Damn it, this wasn't 1407 or something. Okay, 1407? 2007 American horror movie about a hotel room where all the occupants commit suicide based on work by the master of modern horror, Stephen Queen. So, yeah, room... I forget what... I know this. I know they made a movie out of this. 1408, that's what it was called. Wow, instead of Stephen King, Stephen Queen. That's good. Never seen it, but I heard it's good. I turned around. The only person there was Sarika. No one else was looking at me. I took some time to make sure of it before I spoke. Let's go. Yeah. Soy Sauce says, Sarika is my third favorite fictional character of all time, right below Spider-Man and Takaru. So love the good impression of her so far. Oh, thanks. Sarika nodded cheerfully and stayed behind me as we walked deeper into the hallway. I remembered the location of the window I'd seen outside. It was probably deeper in the hall, the furthest one back, or the one before it. It's probably one of those two. I walked as silently as I could down the long hallway toward the last rooms on the left side. With every step I took, I could feel the sensation of the hallway floor through the bottom of my heels. It was like I was being forced to think about nerves that I never used. My body felt very tense. I didn't see any cops in the hallway. Usually they'd at least leave one person here at the scene. Was this the wrong floor? We reached the second to the last door. Room 306. Oh boy. Time for a delusion. No, it wasn't Jim Carrey. It was Samuel L. Jackson and John Cusack. That's it. Don't worry, I have my water bottle here. I'm taking this opportunity. So, do we want to go positive or negative? Negative. How's everybody feeling? I'm seeing most say negative so far. A few positives. So this is a delusions smash match. So either it doesn't actually happen, but the main character imagines something positive happening in this situation or something negative happening in this situation. Thoughts on your death profile? Oh, that's awesome. That's really good. Well done. I will say not doing delusions does cut down on the length of the game a tad bit, since the scenes do take longer than skipping. That's true. Negative, up the tension. Got it. All right, we'll go negative. I feel like we should do it just to get a sense of the game, you know? Soy sauce. So let's go negative. Just the quiet rumble of the air conditioner. Is there a peephole? Come on. This is a love hotel. Oh, right. Hey, what are you knocking? You can't. Alright, let's see what happens when we go negative. And then, suddenly the door flung open. Who the F is knocking on my door? I don't know if I should say that or not. An angry and very underdressed man came storming out. His hair was short and permed, and he had a gold necklace around his neck. Oh no, this guy was bad news. Sarika had frozen in surprise. Were you the one who knocked? When he glared at me, I shook my head without thinking. And then he turned his gaze towards Sarika. Oh no. Then was it you? I'll teach you a lesson about what happens when you screw with me, you stupid kid. The man grabbed Sarika by the hand and tried to pull her into the room. Oh god. No, let me go. You were the one who knocked. No turning back now. Taku? Oh god. She turned toward me for help with tears in her eyes. Something really bad was about to happen to her. I had to do something. I had to... please stop. Shut up! I was suddenly kicked in the solar plexus. The force sent me flying all the way back to the other wall, where I collapsed to the ground. Taku! The pain was so great that I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even stand up. And then the door shut. I could hear the man's yelling and Sarika's screams from within. Yeesh. All I could do was crumple up into a ball on the ground, crying in fear and frustration. Sheesh! They went dark. What if that happened? Sarika was just too reckless. We didn't belong in a place like this anyway. I bit my lip and watched in fear as she kept knocking. Stop it, okay? You sure? The police aren't here either. Maybe it's not this floor. That went dark. I flinched back at the sudden noise. I don't even know what kind of positive situation would happen there, other than like a half-naked woman coming out. I guess that'd be the positive delusion that he'd have. What? Was that the sound of breaking glass? It was from the next room over, right? She was clinging to my back in surprise with her hands on my shoulders. I think so. It came from further down, right? Sarika pointed to the next room. We stood there for a moment. The violent sound must have scared her because Sarika's easygoing mood had totally vanished. But we waited a while and nothing more happened. There were no voices or sounds of struggle. The hallway was the same as ever. But was I imagining it, or was the hall a little darker than before? Should we go back? Serica didn't answer my question. She didn't seem afraid, but she had a serious look on her face as she stared down the hallway. Maybe something had happened and the killer was still there? No, wait, I need to think about this rationally. There was an officer on the first floor who'd called for backup. Usually when a call came in, the police never came there alone. There was always more than one. I'd found that out for myself during my reporting, so I was sure of it. So there had to be another officer at the scene. The killer couldn't just be hiding there. If there was any chance of that, the cop wouldn't have just told us to go back to our rooms. Did the killer break the glass during a struggle? No, that didn't make any sense either. If there was any chance of them being able to do that, would that officer have gone downstairs? He'd probably gone down there to tell the front desk not to let anyone in. Damn it. I had no proof, but it should be okay. More than anything, I hadn't taken any photos yet. What? I jumped literally when I heard the sudden sound. It was a very strange sound, one that didn't belong here at all. I looked and saw that Serica had gotten so nervous that she had taken out her Garo Froggy Garoro strap and started to play with it. She probably didn't even know she was doing it. I softly poked her with my elbow. I motioned for her to keep quiet and she seemed confused, but then she realized what she was doing and quickly put the strap back in her pocket. As soon as she was done, I looked down the hall once more, all the way to the front of the room. We should head there. I tried to steel myself, then checked over my shoulder once more to make sure no one was there. I started to walk forward very carefully. I was afraid of making even the slightest sound. Serica followed me wordlessly with her hand on my shoulder. I grabbed her hand with my free hand. The other was holding my smartphone. She squeezed it tight. The feeling of her fingers kept me strong as I walked forward. The next room. Room 305, the room at the far end of the hallway. Just like room 306, it had a plain old door, but it felt like it was exuding an intense pressure. This is where it came from, right? She was asking about the sound. I think so. I answered despite not having any proof at all. We waited, but still heard nothing. I looked around once more to make sure no one was there, then put my ear up against the door. And then I heard a small sound. It was the sound that I'd heard outside, the sound from the windows, like a music box playing. It was relaxed and peaceful, even if we weren't, and played the same tune over and over. This is the room, the one with the open windows. Serica was looking at me. Will it open? No, that's... I hesitated, but she put her hand on the doorknob. No way I'd be doing this. Nope. She seemed relieved, but a little upset. I knew exactly how she felt. I felt the same way. I moved away from the door. I would have liked to take some photos before I left, but... Oh, jeez. Huh? Did you just hear the sound of a lock? Yeah. That was what it sounded like. We were too confused to move. Oh, Bob's Gaming Life, thank you so much for the follow. Really do appreciate it. There was no sign of anyone coming out. I slowly touched the doorknob. It turned. The door was unlocked. How? Well, how do you think? As if guided by all the strange things that were happening, I pushed the record button on my smartphone. I gripped the doorknob tighter. Man, telling the exact amount of minutes left on your recording. I'm impressed. A voice in my mind told me to stop, to go back, but it was wiped out by the sound of the smartphone recording starting and the storage slowly opening. The more it opened, the less I was able to ignore my curiosity. Oh god, that song Egg Roll. It would definitely never leave your head. It felt like something besides Serica was pushing me forward as I opened the door. That song was playing in the dimly lit room. All the lights were off, but the sound outside was streaming through the open window. Its light was very weak. The curtain in front of me, which partitioned off the front of the room, was blocking the light. I gulped and realized my lips were dry. I ran my tongue over them to wet them a little, then I realized my heart was pounding. The sound was so loud I thought my heart might have somehow moved up to my ears. It seemed to be beating out some bizarre rhythm, and it was making me sick. Hey, Horizon Brave. I forced myself to swallow my saliva and hoped it would keep me from throwing up. Then I took a slow step forward. I held up my phone to record what I was seeing, and then I realized something. That curtain wasn't partitioning the room. It was a bed. There was a raised spot off the floor with a circular bed surrounded by a curtain. The light was streaming out from behind it. The windows we'd seen were on the other side of it. And the song seemed to be coming from there as well. Crap, it was too dark. I went to flip the nearby light switch, then forced myself to stop. No, I couldn't touch anything in the room. Some kind of crime must have taken place here. But I was scared to go any deeper into the darkness. My shoes made my steps loud against the floor. There was no response. Only the relaxed melody. I gave a signal to Serica, who was still behind me, and went deeper into the room. So, time stage, we found out about a third murder that seemed to happen on the dates that that match up with a previous murder case like this, and the idiot protagonist and the bubbly best friend, childhood friend, decided to go to the hotel where it happened and investigate because it was called in by the police and they were checking out from themselves to get a story. So, yeah. What? For a moment, I thought I heard the sound of creaking metal. It felt like I was hearing it between the gaps in the music box's melody. But there was no change that I could see. No one jumped out. Nothing was moving. There was just the sound of the music box. I looked from one part of the room to another to make sure nothing was amiss. And then I slowly moved forward. Well, that ain't good. Someone was lying on the floor. Huh? When my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw... Ooh. A police officer. Ooh. And a woman? The officer was lying up against the bathroom with his legs splayed and his head drooping. The girl was lying on the floor face down. They showed no sign of noticing us. Nope, that wasn't right. The glass behind them was shattered into 1,000 pieces. Darth Chrono, we went forward. So if you're in the other country, yeah, daylight savings time started today. So I guess it's going to be starting an hour earlier for you because we jumped forward. So what was, so even though it's 9:48 for me, it was supposed to be 8:48 normally, but then daylight savings happened and yeah, crap. The second I understood what was going on, the hand holding the smartphone started to shake. Crap, crap, crap! I could see a little blood dripping off the police officer's head. I spun around as I heard the sound. Oh God. The warmth drained from my face in an instant and my whole body shivered. Someone was sitting on the bed. I staggered back and slammed into Serica. Let's get out of here, now. But I couldn't move. My hand was frozen as it pointed the smartphone towards whoever was behind the curtain, and I wasn't doing what I told it. Damn it. I took a step back, tripped, and then fell to the floor. My lungs weren't working right. The silhouette moved a little, and I flinched. No, it didn't move. The bed was rotating. Whoever was behind the curtains showed no sign of noticing us. They didn't budge an inch. What the hell is going on here? Takaru, the door won't open. Serika's voice sounded like it was far away. Jeez. 556 with a highlighted message saying, with the way dead bodies are displayed here, I'm surprised how Ace Attorney managed to tone them down, right? It's 7 p.m. there in Mexico. Yeah, so you got to set a little earlier for your time. Sorry about that. I ran back to the entrance and slammed myself into the door. It wasn't opening. It wasn't opening. I want it open. I don't know. Serika yelled back at me. Why? Why? Serika screamed as she slammed against the door. I helped her try to batter it down. But it didn't work. It was like trying to batter down a wall. Oh, crap. Suddenly, I heard a knock at the door. I reflexively jumped away without thinking. Knock, 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 knock. It was coming from this door. The knocking was rhythmic and constant. What? It was just a knock at the door, but my whole body started to shake. Someone was on the other side of the door. Someone was knocking. It definitely wasn't the police. Oh yeah, it does a good job with tension, lass. I felt as if my sanity was boiling away, melting out from the soles of my feet on upward. No. No. I should have listened to her. Don't open that door. Right, go out the back. Let's use the window. I grabbed Serika's hand and ran to the back of the room. And fell silent at what I saw. Huh? No. What was that? What the hell? The curtain was open. There was a man there, sitting. No, he was moving slowly. The bed was moving in time to the sound of the music box. An eerie sound came from the wire wrapped around his neck. The wire was hanging down from the ceiling, choking him. His face was all puffed up and a color I'd never seen before. Hold on, let me see make sure it's not too loud. I'm gonna just lower the volume a little bit. His pants were wet and the stain extended to the bed itself. The smell of piss and shit hung in my nose. He wasn't alive. He was dead. What the hell is this? Why was he dead? Did he suffocate? Why was the curtain open? And what the hell was he doing? Why was he dead? My right hand moved without me realizing it. Huh? I needed to use the window to escape, but I pointed my phone's camera at the body instead. Taku, we need to get out of here. The body spun slowly. Each time it went around, the wire made an awful sound and dug deeper into his neck. It had dug in so deep by now that the man's neck was the size of my wrist. Oh God. The skin must have been broken because it was bleeding a little. What am I doing? Serika was right next to me, but her voice sounded far away, like she was talking through a telephone. I needed to get out of here, but I couldn't stop the filming. Why was I doing this? Why was he dead? The wire dug deeper and deeper into his neck without waiting for me to come up with an answer. The body turned away from me. I could see the back of his neck. The flesh around the wire was swollen red and black. I heard a muffled sound like something hard snapping snapping inside of a bag. The head slumped just a little. Ooh. Oh God. His neck is just broken. That's on backwards. That's not the way that goes. That needs to be the other way around. That's not good. That must have been the sound of neck breaking. Taku, let's get out of here. I could hear Sarika's voice. Get out of here. Get out of here. That's right. I need to get out of here. Yeah, no kidding. My body moved as I heard another sound. I spun around. Oh God! I screamed. And then I heard something from behind me. I don't know what I did, but the next thing I knew, my whole field of vision had turned red. Then I felt something like a ball hit me. Before I could understand what it was, everything faded to black. Jeez. September 30th, 2015, Wednesday. I'm going to guess we got arrested or something. midnight. Shinjo, we've made an ID the victim from his possessions in the security cameras. His name is Hironori Kakita. We try that again. Hironori Kakita, 22 years old, a Shibuya resident with a part-time marketing job at Koshin. What's that a parody of? Venture capital company located in Shibuya that participated in the post-earthquake reconstruction business. After using massive amounts of money to monopolize the construction companies involved in the reconstruction, they've moved on to other projects such as introduction of new infrastructure. They've also taken the lead in supplying business models and partnership opportunities to various nonprofits and volunteer groups. All right. Okay. I love how you guys are talking about Bluey right now. Oh, well, because GCM needs Bluey after this. Yeah, I feel that. This is why I recommended Amy to not watch the stream at all. Because sometimes she'll just lurk and watch a little bit. I'm like, no, this is not for you. A part-timer at Koshin. Any lovers? None. No roommates either. He lived alone, it seems. Shit. Shinjo the king himself? Is he from the first game? If he was single and not in a relationship, it would take time to figure out his private life. And Koshin was one of the companies that had profited the most from the recovery projects in recent years. Part-timer or not, if he worked there, he was probably pretty busy. It was possible that his co-workers knew just his name and nothing else about who he was outside of work. Shinjo, what do we tell the media? Kayomi TV and Nico Neo's net reporters are refusing to leave. And those two kids we found at the scene who said they're with a Heikiho newspaper club, they've calmed down, but they're still not making a lot of sense. That other girl we haven't doesn't have anything that would tell us who she is. We're checking if she's friends or relative of Kakita's, but no luck yet. She's refusing to say anything. Also, forensics wanted to know... Hey, you can't just... This is Watabe from Nikonia News. Excuse me, what's going on here? Get out! You can't come in here without permission. Just a brief comment. A brief comment is all I need. Shinzo's men physically dragged the reporter out of the room. Only from this game you just really like him. Okay. He had to stop himself from putting his hands to his head and moaning. He couldn't let his men see him acting weak. Shinjo had been with Police HQ Section 1 for less than 7 years. He didn't get along with his superiors, but he'd managed to beg his way into being in charge of this case. Maybe this was his way of avenging the death of an older detective who'd he'd admired. I'm guessing that's from the other game. Once you're done looking at the window frame, make sure it can't be seen from outside. There's no telling what those net reporters will do. Yes, sir. I'll talk to forensics myself. Oh, and put some more manpower into checking his connections at work. I'll tell the bosses. Yes, sir. But so what about those kids? I'll handle them too. Get to it. Yes, sir. His men raced out of the room. They'd never had a case like this before, and they were probably pretty excited. So was Shinjo, to be honest. The whole thing was such a mess that he didn't even know where to begin, but his detective's instincts were screaming at him to start doing the work needed to find the killer. Okay. Okay, reference to the prequel. Thought so. Hello, this is Trustworthiness Investigation Company Frisia. His call was answered on the first ring, like always. It's me. Oh, Shinjo, you're late. I thought you'd be contacting me earlier. I'm sorry. Shinjo apologized without thinking and for no clear reason. He always felt like a naughty child when he spoke to the CEO, who happened to be a woman. You know why you're so exhausted. It's because you're taking this so seriously. You should relax a bit, like they did. I've got no intention of copying their habits. You're so serious, aren't you? If you keep on thinking that's a virtue, you're going to have a bad time with it one day. Momose, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. Shinjo cut her off before she continued her lecture and gave her a brief description of the scene. This was a violation of the rules, but the only way to solve a crazy case was to be a little crazy yourself. That was the first thing he'd learned from that older detective. Just sort of reading your comment to myself, so soy sauce. Robotics notes. That's interesting. It seems it's so different. So is it murder or suicide? Momose asked her a question after he described the situation. She cut to the heart of the problem. We're not sure right now. The hotel had gotten suspicious when Kakita had never come out after checkout time. When more than 10 calls to the room went unanswered, they contacted the police. 2 officers, as well as someone from the hotel, had gone to the room and found the body in an unconscious girl. One officer stayed at the scene to keep it secure, and the other searched the hotel to make sure it was safe. During the search, he'd forgotten to lock the employee entrance in the back near the stairs. That was how the 2 students from Hekiho had gotten in. Shortly after he'd left the room, the girl woke up and started strangling the officer who'd stayed. He'd hit his head on the edge of the glass window and knocked himself out. Okay, so the police officer wasn't dead. He was going to be fine, but he'd been out cold until backup arrived. When the backup got there, they found the girl unconscious on the floor. A boy from Hekiho was passed out on the floor too. We dude, thank you very much for the raid. Party of 7, welcome to Chaos Child. And right off the bat, warning to anybody that this is a visual novel with some potentially intense depictions. This is honestly one of the more tame ones that we're on right now. But you guys, playing Valkyria Chronicles. Is it your first time? Because my god, that game is so good. So looking forward to actually getting back to Valkyria Chronicles 4. So Colex, we're investigating, we're getting the details on the 3rd murder of the game. But yes, welcome. I guess you could say I'm a variety streamer, but my gimmick is that with enough channel points, you can request me to play any game that you'd like. Hopefully from my collection, but you know, I do take others from out beyond that as well. And yeah, just go through and see what you encounter. It's a little bit of everything. You never quite know what I'm in for, that's for sure. We finished Shimigami Tensei 4 before this game, and tomorrow we're starting Wario World. So yeah, just all over the place. When the backup got there, they found the girl unconscious on the floor. Oh yeah, we read that one already. The other girl from Hekiho was throwing up, also on the floor. Oh, poor Sarika. Kakita's cause of death was asphyxia via strangulation. The wire around his neck was a kind used at construction sites. It had been hung in an X pattern from the lights on the ceiling, and had been sitting on the bed as it rotated. That's why there was so much pressure on his neck that finally his head had been severed. From the estimated time of death, Kakita had passed away before the police had even been contacted. Oh, a week off from work. That is super nice, egg roll. The body on the bed kept spinning in time to the music, one rotation every 2 minutes. In the end, the man's head had been cut off completely. The problem was the girl in the room. There was no indication that she'd ever touched Kakita. There were no fingerprints or any other signs that she'd touched Kakita's body, the bed, or the wire. The only things they found under her fingernails were skin and blood from the officer she'd strangled. In fact, there was no indication she'd touched much of anything in the room. Everything they found belonged to Kakita, and according to the officer she'd strangled, when she'd attacked them, she'd clearly been in an unstable psychological state. Her eyes were bloodshot and out of focus. Looks like the first guy died first. Oh, son has spring break and wife and I are celebrating our 10-year anniversary a week early and getting away for a day. Oh, that sounds nice. That should be fun, egg roll. So, what are you trying to say here? This girl just watched Kakita die without touching anything in the room and then started strangling a police officer while temporarily insane? Shinjo scratched his head as he heard her sum up the situation. That was what it looked like, at least from what they knew right now. And just going by that, it sure looked like a suicide. But it was all far too strange. I see. This is a bit of a problem. What about these kids from Hekiho that got inside the room? I'm so glad they were not limited to just the kids. To get an adult's viewpoint of all this stuff so we get a bit more information. Because you have to really find ways to get these kids to know, to discover things otherwise. It seems like it was pretty traumatic for them, so at first they wouldn't say anything, but now they're starting to talk. But they're from Hekiho, and that place has some issues. He checked with the school and verified that they were part of the school's newspaper club. The security camera at the rear entrance had seen them coming in, which matched with their testimony. But he didn't know what to make of their testimony that the door had opened on its own, or that someone else had tried to come into the room. The door was equipped with an automatic lock, and the only person inside the room who could have opened it was that girl, but there was no sign of her fingerprints on the door, and the security camera in the hallway showed no signs of anyone else trying to go in. In any event, it was extremely rare for a civilian to see a dead body outside of a funeral. And in an unstable mental state, it was extremely easy to imagine things or just outright be mistaken about what was going on. If they turned out to not have any relationship to Kakita or the girl, he planned on letting them off with a stern warning. That's lucky. Our biggest lead is the girl who was in the room, but she's not talking. She's probably going to be put under psychiatric hold at this rate, right? Act of keeping someone in custody at a designated location until their psychological state is normalized. Okay. Yeah, but that will slow down the investigation a lot, so I'd rather not go that route. Got it. Let me get some information spread around. Given your position, this is probably going to be pretty rough for you, so be ready, okay? I'll call back in 3 minutes. Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Shinjo went to hang up the phone. Oh, wait. Yeah? Actually, I want you to do something for me. I'm sure it'll be a big help for you too. Can you do it? So it was basically an order then, Shinjo thought to himself. What is it? One of my kids knows more about this than I do, and they say they want to see the crime scene personally. Can you help them out? You want me to let an outsider into a crime scene? It's always outsiders who will give you the hints you need to solve the case. Are we going to have like a kid detective like in Persona? After all, I'm an outsider too, she continued. In his head, Shinjo went over the steps he'd have to take and the time required to take them. Can it be tomorrow? Or no, the day after? That's my Shinjo. Glad we could work this out. I don't know how you manage around the rest of those hardheads in Section 1. Alright, talk to you later. Hold on a second, Shinjo, would you? He barely stopped himself from ending the call. Is there something else? I wanted to give you some advice, just in case. 2 things. First, what I said before wasn't a joke, okay? Huh? You need to relax a little. Don't take everything so seriously. I'm sure a lot of things are about to happen that will be beyond your understanding. When that happens, your worst enemy is what you think you know. I'll make sure to remember that. If that was a serious answer, you've still got a long ways to go. And the other thing is... Momose paused for a second and chuckled. Don't let my kid get the better of you too often. If you let your guard down, you'll end up an outsider yourself. Alright. Hey, did you see that thing on Twitter? Oh yeah, the meme from Hekihobot. A giant Oopa with a smug look on his face sitting on the Shibuya Hikaria woe and saying Shibuya sure has changed. Okay, what the heck? A Twitter account followed by over 80% of Hekiho students is popular for its variety of tweets, which include funny memes, news about discounts at cafes and restaurants near Hekiho, school rumors, and other things of interest to the student body. Despite the word bot designating an automated posting program in its name, it doesn't post at regular times, and its posts are varying content, so it's thought to be an actual account run by someone at school. Oopa is a ball-shaped mascot from the popular manga Rainet Takaru, which began running in Roku Comics, Koro Comics in 2006. The anime version only increased its popularity, and large amounts of merchandise, such as stuffed animals, followed. Momose is one of the recurring characters from Chaos Head. Part of an information agency that assisted the detective from the first game with that murder case. I see. Yeah, that one's really kind of sad. Can we use that for the Culture Festival? Nobody's going to look at the display about the history of Shibuya's recovery anyway. Is it enough to just have the picture, though? We need to actually have stuffed animals or something. The male student started to search through Shibuya stores with his smartphone. He must have found something strange because he kept mumbling, "No way." Ito was recording the newspaper club's project for the festival, a bunch of random footage of the preparations in the cafeteria. Is this really the right time to be all excited over something like that, guys? A body had just been found in Dogenzaka yesterday, and all these students cared about was their stupid jokes. The body was found less than 10 minutes away from the school, but they barely even mentioned it. Well, it really hasn't hit the news too much yet, but... The first reports had been on a major communications company's website. That was where Ito had seen it. It had been last night. It had made the morning news and the morning papers, but all that had been reported was that a body had been found and that no details were known. And it was rare that for a high school kid to check the TV news and papers every day. Oh, we're going to Comic-Con Academy. That'll be fun. There was no word from Miyashiro. Ito was really worried about what had happened at the Love Hotel, but he had no way of asking about it. Damn it. He took out his phone even though he knew he hadn't gotten any calls. Sure enough, there were no messages. He'd been doing that a lot since yesterday. He couldn't bring himself to make a call. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say to a friend who'd been taken away by the police. The laughing students irritated Ito in a way that he didn't really understand. He'd been planning on videotaping the entire cafeteria today, but instead he gave up and left. You filming? Hope it's going okay. He went inside the club room and saw Kurisu was there. Any word? Kuru's expression clouded for a moment as she shook her head. Nothing since then. I see. Wakui, the club advisor, had told him that Kurisu had taken a change of clothes from Miyashiro to the police station last night. She'd been told that neither Miyashiro nor Onoe were hurt. The police were probably going to let them off with a warning, and if they weren't suffering from any aftereffects from the trauma, they'd be let go in the morning. But school was over. It was almost evening, and there was no word from either of them. Ito dropped into his chair. Damn it, the school's so peaceful. Barely anyone's talking about what happened yesterday. I see. I mean, sure, there are about 2 murder reports a week in Tokyo, so I know it's not exactly a new thing, but... Still, Dogonzaka's right next door. It's possible someone walks by that place on their way to school. Actually, I bet someone does. Maybe it's like he always says, and none of these people ever read the real news. Do you have any idea how obvious you are? Kurisu chuckled. Huh? You're worried about the 2 of them, right? Ito started to speak, but then choked it back. Not really. Aren't you worried, Miss Vice President? Ridiculous, she chuckled. I'm angry. This whole thing is ridiculous. Serika is one thing, but he ignored my warning and went in anyway. And this is what happened. He's making you do all the filming for the newspaper club, too. No, I don't really care. It's not that big a deal. It is. When you're given a job, you need to do it. Excuse me. Is this it? Kurisu, what's going on with the budgets? Kawahara appeared. He was very out of breath. Huh? The budgets? The list of groups that have gone over budget. Accounting says it's not in yet. Kurisu frowned as she realized her mistake. Sorry, I'll send you an email with the list. ASAP, okay? Before the teacher goes home. Kawahara ran off before Kurisu had time to answer. And before he was even out of sight, Kurisu had booted up the PC and started to tap at the keys. What? No, it's nothing. Which of us is more obvious? That's what Ito was about to say before he stopped himself. Normally it was impossible to imagine Kurisu not doing her job. For a while after, Kurisu focused intently on her work. Ito didn't have much else to do, so he watched her. When he looked carefully, he could see small dark spots under her eyes. She probably hadn't slept. And then Ito realized, for the first time, Kurisu had probably come to the club room to see if either of them had contacted him. With all the preparations that were going on, there was no other reason for her to be here. The Empress of all people, huh? Kurisu pressed down hard on the one final key as she finished her task. Then suddenly, an unpleasant sound filled the room. By the way, I just want to say real quick, very delighted to have 63 of you here watching this, despite it basically being me just reading through this. I try to interact as much as possible, but of course, there's not always a lot to say for you guys. So I'm hoping you all are enjoying this. Whoops. And the fact that we have 63 people seems to be that. So yeah. Then suddenly, an unpleasant sound filled the room. We're in it for the long haul. Hey. I know. The heck? They looked over and saw that Kazuki was nibbling on dried squid as she played her game, oblivious to everything around her. Ugh. Ito had seen her come in after Kurisu had started her work. He thought she might say hello, but knowing her, maybe not. He'd also seen her start to play her game. He'd been trying not to bring it up, but that was clearly impossible now. She must have been concentrating pretty hard. Her gaze was constant and steady. Ito sighed. She's always caught up in her own little world, isn't she? Maybe she doesn't care about anyone else. Oh, thank you so much, Annie. Really enjoying this, listening while we play Zero Mission? Ooh, Zero Mission. So good. Ah, the stories he has your interest peaks. That's why I haven't called it a night yet, Soulcaster. That's a good sign. Of course that's not true. She's just a little stronger-willed than most people. Even so... She's in the same club as them, he started to say, but Kurisu stopped him with a raised hand. She looked down at Kazuki's game screen. Evidently not. Huh? Kurisu chuckled and took off Kazuki's headphones. Kazuki, I'm not a big gamer, so correct me if I'm wrong, but... Is there a reason you're continually flinging fireballs at the side of a house? That fire is spreading really fast. Hmm? Kazuki looked back at the screen with a stunned expression on her face. She yanked the headphones out of Kurisu's hands and quickly put them on, then started to pound the keyboard. Huh, who knew? You could be a pyro in her game. Calm down and either swallow that squid or spit it out. What you're doing now is bad manners. Kazuki may or may not have heard her because she struggled with her game for a while and then... Looks like a tongue. That's gross. She froze like a toy whose battery had run out. The squid she'd been chewing on fell out of her mouth and landed on the desk. She stared at it for almost 30 seconds as if something impossible had happened. Then she silently stood up and staggered over to the shelf where we kept the electric coffee maker. Her face had turned pale. Kazuki, are you okay? Are you going to make us coffee? Kazuki nodded in answer to Ito's second question and started to make coffee with shaking hands. She made Kurisu her usual, with 2 cubes of sugar, and gave Ito a coffee mixed with milk. Then she made a cup for herself, black, but didn't drink a drop. Her forehead slammed into the desk with a thud, and she became so quiet it was impossible to tell if she was breathing. Coffee zombie. See? Kurisu looked for Ito for agreement as she cleaned with Kazuki's squid. Wait, really? He took a sip from his coffee, not sure what to think. To him, none of this made any sense. Kurisu didn't say another word as she drank her coffee. Ito looked up at the blank ceiling and decided that this was as good a time as any to ask. It wasn't that it was wrong, but it still felt kind of awkward. Hey. What? Is there a reason he's so obsessed with this case? Kurisu froze. She lowered her gaze as if searching for answers in her coffee cup. What about you? You seem pretty interested in it yourself. She seemed to be trying to change the subject. I just like this stuff. This stuff. Weird murder cases and stuff, but still, running into a crime scene like you did yesterday was... That was going too far, he continued. Kurisu silently took another sip of her coffee. She seemed to be staring at a single point in the distance, lost in thought. It was clear that while she was seeing the things around her, none of them held any meaning to her. Looking at her scared Ito a little. Was it really that big of a deal? If you don't want to tell me... That's not it. I'm sure that, basically, Takaru is the same as you. He likes this stuff. And he's always liked getting involved in things that were dangerous. Lost in thought all alone. I see, Ito said. You two started living together in elementary school, right? Yeah, that's right. A little after the earthquake, to be precise. Just about the time when middle school was supposed to start. Kurisu and Miyashiro were both what people called earthquake orphans. They'd both been in 6th grade when they lost their parents to the earthquake. Since they had no relatives to take them in, they'd been sent to the same group home, the localized small-scale children's welfare facilities, Alba dormitory. A small-scale children's welfare facility with a maximum capacity of up to 6 children, also called group homes. These facilities are often the home of private individual families and are said to be able to offer more personalized care for the children. And time for a drink. Definitely have to stay hydrated for this game, my god. Excuse me. Kids like them weren't common in Shibuya these days, but they weren't exactly rare either. Be careful, Cat Evie. Miyashiro had been so badly injured during the earthquake that he had been put into a coma. He was still in that coma when he arrived at the dorms. The head of the dorm was also the head doctor at the Alba's clinic downstairs, and so for a while that was where he was kept. Kurisu had taken care of literally all his needs. There were 4 kids at the facility. Kurisu and Miyashiro were the oldest. Since her birthday was earlier than his, she dubbed herself the oldest of the 4 siblings and volunteered to take care of the other 3. Even back then, Miyashiro had a habit of being curious and getting into trouble. He's just a little brat, you know? He says all the time that he's different from everyone else, right? Even though that's not true. She spoke like a parent worried for her child's future. But in the end, he... Hello, everyone. Oh, I didn't think I'd see you here, Kurisu. Did you hear anything? The club advisor... This guy's design just reminds me of, like, 3 different anime characters' designs combined. The club advisor, Wakui, was quite relaxed as he came into the room. Kurisu quickly stood up and rushed over to him. He nodded and motioned for her to calm down. Yeah, just now. Is everything okay? Huh? Of course. Hey, Ito, get to the gym, now. Huh? The gym? Why? The light music club says they're about to do a rehearsal. It should be good footage for the culture festival. Kurisu's expression froze, and suddenly it changed. Mr. Wakui, is that what you heard? Yeah, that's right. What's up, Kurisu? You look so happy. Oh, I seem happy to you? I'm going now. You should come with me. Huh? Wait. Oh, we're about to witness another murder. Sensing a gathering storm of violence, Ito pushed Wakui out of the door. He's learned. Kazuki had looked up, but now she slammed her head back on the desk. Now that she was all alone, Kurisu took out her phone and checked it. There was no message, of course. She sighed and looked at the board. That incident yesterday at the Love Hotel. Whether it was murder or suicide, from the way Miyashiro and Onoe had looked once they'd been taken by the police, something had happened. It was about the most cheerful way anyone has ever said, oh, we're about to witness another murder. I mean, in this context, yes. Miyashiro had said it had something to do with the incident 6 years ago. Now that it had happened 3 times, there was no ignoring it. No, it was too dangerous. She couldn't let him get more involved in this. She thought back to Ito's question about why Miyashiro was so interested in this case. Kazuki was still lying with her head on the desk. When she turned her head to the side, for some reason, she looked like she was enjoying herself. When Kurisu saw that, she suddenly lost her desire to drink the coffee. Apologizing in her mind to Kazuki, she decided to pour it out at the water fountain. She headed to the upstairs water fountain, which was usually less crowded. She found herself looking down at the gaps between the tiles as the sound of her footsteps rang in her ears. She could tell that she was walking slower than usual. Essentially, Kurisu was lonely. She remembered what she'd said to Miyashiro when he woke up in the clinic. I'm No Kurisu. Call me by my first name. We're family, so it would be weird to call each other by our last names, right? Gregster at 220k. Congrats. Seems like these are one of the things I like about this series, approaching their protagonists this way. The game is very well aware that Takaru is an ass, and the story and characters actively fault him for that. It provides a different perspective on character interactions than other stories with more morally right protagonists. I guess that's a good point. In the end, he just wants to pretend that he's special. She knew why, she supposed. The events that had caused him to leave the dorm was still bothering him. November 7th, 2009. This way! Please! Come this way! I'm telling you, we can get around from the back. How many times do I have to... Save us! Someone! Why won't the phones work? I wanted water. I could still feel the sensation of the dead woman I'd touched when I'd fallen on my hands, and I wanted to wash it off. I wanted to wash my face too. The wind from the flames had blown something small into my eye, and it itched badly. I was thirsty too. Sarika was on my back and showed no signs of waking up. Damn it. My legs were at their limit, so I forced my way through the crowd and sat down on a tire that had rolled nearby. It smelled like burning rubber. I didn't have the energy to apologize to the people I ran into, and they didn't have the energy left to complain. I slowly brought Sarika to rest on my knees and looked around. I saw an orange light. The light of the fires reflected off of many things. It was pretty, I thought, before I realized how inappropriate that was. Wow, so many of you getting close. Oh, this earthquake happened at the climax of Chaos Head. Makes me very curious how Chaos Head ended. For some, like, how the heck did that game wrap up? But I guess I probably shouldn't look it up just because it would probably spoil how the type of swerves that this game might have in store. Like, we don't know how realistic they'll stay or how weird they'll get is I guess the big thing. For some reason, I started to count the bodies on the ground, not knowing if they were alive or dead. But in less than 5 seconds, I'd gotten way over 10 and realized how futile it was. I stopped. Shibuya Station was utterly destroyed. The 107, only a few minutes away by foot, was ruined as well. 5 whole hours after the earthquake, and the chaos had only increased. There were fewer people out walking, but I wasn't sure if that was because they reached safety or had simply collapsed from exhaustion. I saw someone carrying his own severed arm in a convenience store bag. Oh God. I saw people ignore a barefoot woman as she cradled a baby whose head... Some had outright given up on sanity and were flinging things into the fire. A group of middle-aged salarymen were dragging a young girl into the darkness. A young man went to join them. Oh, God. Soy Sauce says, Chaos Head is by far a lot weirder and darker than Child. Since at the start of the series, it felt like the writers going all out to see what sticks. I see. This is hell. There is no other way to describe it. This was hell. Sarika moaned a little in my lap. I slapped her cheeks to wake her up. Onoe. Onoe? Her face distorted in agony. It was okay. She was breathing. She was okay. We're heading to Yoyogi, okay? You know, that big general hospital? You remember, right? We snuck in there once when we were little. Instead of answering, she just moved her eyebrows a little. I swore and lifted her up on my back again. She didn't seem to be that badly hurt, but this kept happening. I read on Twitter that the general hospital in front of Yoyogi Station was accepting patients injured in the earthquake. I didn't know that it was true, but I had no choice but to go. It had to be better than the hell that was Shibuya. Don't die. I yelled, unsure if Sarika could even hear me, and started walking. I just needed to get to the hospital. What the hell? Okay, what was that about? I leapt up. I quickly glanced to the left and right as I tried to calm my racing heart. I saw that I was in my own bed. Jacob, you just got here wondering what you missed. We came across our third murder. The main character got taken away along with Sarika. We met the head police officer of the whole case, and we're basically just getting a little bit of backstory hints on the main character. I felt exhausted. I also felt really thirsty. Maybe it was because I had the dream again. I searched around until I found the bottle of water by my bedside, took a gulp, and then grabbed the phone off of my bed to check the time. 12:17 a.m. It's a new day, huh? It was around noon when the police had let me go from Shibuya Station with a warning. I'd gone home and gone straight to bed, so I would have been out for more than 12 hours. This was no good. Maybe I'd slept too long, or maybe I hadn't slept enough, because my head felt like it was filled with lead. No, maybe not. I put my hands up to the thin light that was coming through the window and checked their color. They were the same as always. There was no blood on them. Ugh. I felt a little like throwing up. I hoped another drink of water would help, but it didn't. Damn it. I thought for a moment, then decided to turn on the room lights. I turned on the laptop. I ran a search for urge to vomit less than foods drinks. The internet gave me page after page of results. I checked a bunch of pages just like you're supposed to when you're looking something up. Ginger, huh? I guess I've got that Kanto they Gen gave me. I looked under the sink until I found the Kanto powder, then poured it into a cup and added some hot water from the electric kettle. It had a strange smell, unlike anything I was used to. I took a sip. I could tell that my hands were shaking a little as I held the cup. Don't know what Kanto is, but ginger does help. God damn it all. It wasn't the first time I'd seen a body. I checked the phone again and saw that there were several messages from Sarika and Kurisu. I went to answer, but stopped. They were probably still up, but I didn't feel like talking to anyone. It felt like the air I'd breathed in. Can't talk. It felt like the air I'd breathed in at the Love Hotel yesterday was still deep inside me, along with the cheerful melody of the music box and the red that covered my vision. I felt something strange on my cheek and put a hand up to feel it. It was a bandage. I'd gone to some kind of clinic at the police station where they put it on. They told me I must have hit my face hard on the floor when I'd passed out. I was unlucky enough to scrape my cheek against a piece of the shattered glass. Thankfully, it wasn't a big wound, it barely hurt at all. But it itched like hell. And each time it itched, the shock I'd felt come rushing back and quickened my pulse. Excuse me. Oh my god. Excuse me. The danger was long gone, but I still couldn't forget the terror. Had I almost been caught up in something horrible? No. I was fine. I was fine, right? I wasn't like everyone else. I wasn't an amateur. I'd gone through that hell I just dreamed about and survived. Okay. Maybe having that nightmare again was good for me. I managed to force down the urge to vomit and clicked away at the computer. I opened my computer's TV program, changed the channel to a news program, and watched it on my monitor. A few months ago, I bought a USB TV tuner off of a homeless guy who had no idea what it was worth. All it cost me was dinner at a local restaurant. Just like I thought, there was an article about the events 2 days ago. All they said was that a man's body was found in a Dogonzaka love hotel. They didn't say whether it was suicide, murder, or just an accident. There was nothing about the girl who'd been found at the scene. Or about me and Sarika. I see. I figured this is what I'd get. I never experienced myself the gap between what happened at a crime scene and what was reported on TV, but it didn't really surprise me. These days, the internet was a lot faster at reporting things than TV. To people who followed the news online, TV wasn't a place to learn new things. It was where you went to see if something you'd heard about was so important that it was getting TV coverage. What about people online? I closed the TV program and opened a browser. Nikonia News had something on it too. I clicked on the uploaded video. Another incident has occurred in Shibuya. This makes for 3 strange incidents so far. Just like always, it was Watabe, the attention-seeking internet reporter. He was famous for charging into crime scenes to get scoops. Lately, he seemed to be getting a little too cocky. He explained what had gone on at the Love Hotel as the video showed pictures that he had probably taken himself. Either way, I think the police are hiding something. The only announcement was that a body had been found, but if that's all, then why would... And then, like always, he started mixing his own subjective opinions with the news. He was right, the police were hiding something, but there was little point in listening to the rest of this. Vague information would just get in the way. This is all you can expect from the masses on the internet, I guess. I mostly ignored Watabe's voice as I looked at the video on the screen. He must have gotten it by charging into the hotel room. What the hell was all that? I thought back to what had happened. A man strangled to death in his room. There was an unconscious girl and a police officer there as well. The girl was the most obvious suspect. Even if she chose a strange way to do it, she still must have killed him, right? One second, guys. I just heard Kai start to cry a little bit on his monitor. I just want to make sure he's okay. Be right back. Okay, it's nothing major. It's sometimes he wakes up a little bit and just makes some sounds. That's all that was. He's still very much asleep. No, if she had definitely killed him, then they would have announced that. She was arrested just like I was. Over 30 hours had passed. Even if they'd found out she was innocent, they should have announced that. The police believe that the girl with him may know something and are proceeding with their investigation, like that. Did the police think that she didn't do it? Then what was she doing in that room? And even if the police had told me during the interrogation that I imagine it, I knew what I heard. Someone else had visited that room and knocked on the door. The sound was eerie and always had the same rhythm. I felt a cold chill and idly turned toward the door. All right. Are we in the mood for something positive or something negative? Should we cheer this poor guy up or should we keep up the horror? Zacian, real quick. I have a question. Should I bother with getting 100% social links in the first play of the Persona 4 Golden because I just ruined the Fox social link? Nope, don't bother. Just go with the best you can. Good night, Gregster. Nah, just play normally. You get what you get. That's the best way to handle Persona, because if you try to get 100%, you will burn yourself out, because you have to be so precise with that sort of stuff. All right, I'm definitely seeing more positive this time around. That's why I never finished the original Persona 4. I thought in order to get the good ending, you had to get all the social links maxed out. So I followed a guide so I could do that. And yeah. I burned out around kanji. All right, positive. There was no sign of anyone approaching it. I listened carefully to see if I could hear anything outside. Nothing. Come on, you're worrying too much. I don't even know what kind of positive effect we could see with this. Yeah, New Game Plus if you're interested, Zacian. Huh? I just heard a knock on the door, right? I couldn't believe it, but I'd forgotten to lock the door. I froze as it swung open from the outside. Someone was here. Who? I knew 2 people who had come in without waiting for an answer, but was it okay for me to just stand here? Who's there? I gulped and spoke in a hoarse voice. Poking through the gap in the door was... Taku? Oh. Someone I knew well. Good. You're still up. Relieved, I staggered over and sat down on the bed. That hadn't done my heart any favors. In my opinion, your first playthrough in Persona should focus on your favorite characters, plus raising your social stats when you can. New Game Plus is the max social link run. Yeah. For some reason, Sarika was standing at the entrance, fidgeting. She didn't try to come any further in. What's wrong? I don't think it's a good idea for a girl to be coming by alone at this hour. I didn't think any of the homeless in this park were bad people, but someone who was hard up for money might attack her. Especially after what I'd seen, I felt like I was going to start imagining things I didn't want to visualize. Taku, are you okay? Okay with what? After what happened yesterday? Honestly, not really. Was Sarika going through the same thing? Yeah! When I'm alone in the house, I remember what happened yesterday, so I get scared and can't sleep. I went away. I don't want to be alone tonight, okay? Can I stay over just for tonight? I knew exactly how she felt. Just having someone you knew next to you was enough to make you feel a lot better. Take me, for example. Having Sarika here was letting me relax a little. Sure. I'd have to sleep on the floor, I supposed. Thanks. Sarika must have felt better when she heard my response, because she looked like she was about to cry. She sat down right next to me on the bed. Why was she sitting next to me? Oh boy. There were other places to sit, but when I looked closer, I saw that her shoulders were shaking a little. You know, this could have been a wait. This could have been a nice positive, like, we shared the same experience, I want to comfort her type thing, but of course it goes into like, nah, I want to sleep next to you. I just keep remembering what happened yesterday. Onoe. It was natural, I supposed. Sarika was a girl and she was younger than me. Seeing something like that must have been a huge shock to her. It was my fault for getting her caught up in this. As I started to think about that, she put her head against my shoulder. Oh, hey, Simidan. I might lose power. Yeah, hopefully you'll stay alright. Taku, stay with me. Please. This could still be innocent. This could still be innocent. Just 2 traumatized people sleeping next to each other. We're good. We're good. Onoe's a lot tougher than that. Of course, in reality, Sarika would never let me see her being that vulnerable, and she'd never actually come to visit. Was she okay, even if I wasn't? Maybe she was just fine. She was probably just dense, yeah. I was really delicate, so in a sense, I was jealous of her. I sighed a little and locked the door. Honestly, that was a pretty decent one. That's right, crap. It was a new day. What about the pundits on the internet? I quickly opened another site, Shibuya News. News. This was the private news site I trusted the most. It was always updated at midnight every day. The quality of the news and the reliability of its updates made it far more useful than TV or the mass market sites. Online news was faster than TV, but of course, some sites were better than others. There was no end to the number of wrong-siders who would treat the net as a single entity that was the opposite of the TV. The TV says one thing, but the internet says something different, they'd say. If you ask me, they were utter morons. These days, even though a lot of the larger sites online aim for the same mass market the TV news did, it was critical that you find out for yourself which sites could really be trusted. Just like the name implied, Shibuya News dealt with the goings-on around Shibuya. It was similar enough to our newspaper club that everyone in the club knew about the site and used it regularly. Its owner, Kei, was, how to say this, very skilled at getting and sharing information and seeing its effects. She carefully calculated when to send and when to receive information. A lot of child and grandchild sites use Shibuya News as their parent site. Most of them were privately run news sites as well. As a result, a huge number of people saw the information that Kei spread. To put it more unkindly, Kei was manipulating them. Anytime Kei wrote about a popular shop among high school students in Shibuya or a free smartphone app, I would hear people at school talking about it within a few days. Take, for example, the Twitter user that most of Hekiho Academy followed, HekihoBot. It described itself as a bot by Hekiho students for Hekiho students, but from the number of times it would show up on Shibuya News, my guess was that it was actually run by Kei. That was a cat in the top box, Caddy. Kei was one of the few people I recognized as a right-sider. When something important was going on in Shibuya, first you check the TV shows to get the basics, then the mass market sites to see what the net was saying, then you would go to Shibuya News for the latest information. This was the way the newspaper club, and myself specifically, would always look for information. I figured they'd be broadcasting. The quality of the news wasn't the only reason that Shibuya News was popular. One reason was that Kei appeared to be a girl. When someone was thought to be a girl in real life, they got a lot more hits than someone who was thought to be a guy. Okay, sure. And the other reason was... and that was A Contract of Blood to Seal Our Sin by Phantasm. Okay, what's Phantasm? A gothic punk band that was popular in Shibuya around 2009. In 2015, it still has some passionate fans. A group of 4, but only the names of the vocalist, FES, and the guitarist, Ryo, have been made public. Not sure what that's a reference to. Let's see. This radio broadcast. Whenever there was something big she wanted to report on, she would always do an internet radio broadcast. It offered proof that she was a girl, her voice calm and pleasant to the ear. A lot of people just listened to her broadcast. ASMR. The audio from the leaky noise case that I'd played for Kurisu had actually been modified by Kei to be easier to understand. Okay, normally I don't play Phantasm, but there's a reason I've chosen it today. You're all aware of the death of a man in his 20s in a Shibuya love hotel yesterday, right? Like always, Watabe at Nikoniya News was there to tell you all about it, but... I chuckled a little. His glory hogging was a running joke among Nikoniya News viewers. But there was something he didn't notice. Anything 6 years ago is Chaos Head? Oh, okay. Soy sauce. Manipulation of information to the masses and the dangers of getting information on the internet is a major theme through the entire series. Interesting. Phantasm released the song 6 years ago, and you all remember what happened then, of course. That's right, the Shibuya earthquake. But before that, there was also the strange events called the New Generation Madness. I was startled. That's right, crap. I'd forgotten after all that had happened at the Love Hotel. No way. Some of you have already noticed, right? The Don't Look at Me case on the 7th of September, and then leaky noise on the 19th, and now this new death yesterday. Or, more precisely, 2 days ago on the 29th. The dates match up with the incidents 6 years ago. Ah, you weren't first, buddy. In that second, the Twitter stream that was linked to the broadcast lit up. It was overflowing with comments. The next date is October 10th, the date of the vampire case. My beloved citizens of Shibuya, please take care. That's all for you tonight. Thank you for listening in. This has been your host, Kay. It will soon be 12:30 a.m. on October 1st. I pray you spend tomorrow in a way you won't regret. She signed off in her usual way, and then the broadcast ended. She got me. That's right. That hypothesis was why I forced my way into the Love Hotel. And something had happened, just like I thought. After 3 such incidents, it was only natural to assume that there might be a connection. The new generation madness. Yeesh. Ugh. Some of those are brutal. Oh, good night, Oscar. Take care. Was it going to happen again? I suddenly felt a pain in my cheek. I reached up and saw that blood was coming out from the side of the bandage. The cut must have opened. As I took care of it, the red blood on my fingers stood out. Without warning, I felt a horrible sense of dread, like I was sinking into quicksand. Usually, I love to have a mystery to solve, but now that the case was definitely real, I hesitated. For the rest of the night, I wasn't able to do any more research about the case. All right. First, thread archived. Oh yeah, it's happening GIF, of course. Kay is so smart. Oh boy. Festival time. New gen. Oh my gosh, these people. I went to see the Espers from 6 years ago in front of the station. Wow. It's been 6 years, time to drag this out. I call BS. I thought Kay was smarter than this. I'm disappointed. You guys make me sick. People are dead. What are you so happy about? Yep. I'm assuming that was Kay looking at the information, like reading that. October 1st, 2015, Thursday, the same time. Shibuya Police Station. Would you please just tell me your name and address already? Are you a student or do you have a job? You went to that hotel with that man, Kakita, many times, right? How did you know him? Were you dating? If you don't want to talk, feel free to just nod or wave your hand. Just tell me. The officer sank back into her chair in resignation. Shinjo could sympathize. I see. He'd just come to check on her a moment ago, but they'd been probably doing this since yesterday. Locked in an interrogation room, cut off from the outside world, and questioned by multiple officers, most people would lose their cool. They started to wonder what effects their words were having, and focus on every movement of the officer who was taking down notes. It wasn't hot in the room, but they'd sweat. But this girl didn't respond at all. It probably wasn't because she was used to it. If she'd ever been interrogated before, the fingerprints they'd taken would have told them who she was. Shinjo? Maybe we should take her to a mental hospital, you mean? In the first game, millennials were fascinated with this cases similar to a craze around snuff films, hence the name New Gen Madness. I see. It made sense. The natural assumption was that the shock of the incident had incapacitated her. Shinjo nodded as if considering it. Any missing persons reports. Bleh. This was the second day since the incident. If she lived in a normal family environment, someone should have submitted a missing persons report by now. I checked, but no luck. Shinjo watched the girl as he listened to her talk, but the girl didn't move a muscle. Even mentioning her family didn't get us anywhere, huh? The normal ways weren't going to work then. She'd been sent to the hospital by Dawn She'd be sent to the hospital by dawn at this rate. Thanks. I'll take care of her. You can go. The other officer couldn't hide her happiness as she left the room. Shinjo sat down in the chair she'd been sitting in and took a good look at the girl from the front. She was ignoring him and still looking down at the desk. She didn't even seem to notice or care that the person in front of her had changed. Shinjo remembered his conversation with Momose. After he'd hung up, she called back in precisely 3 minutes, just like she'd promised. And then she said, "My kid has a message for you," is what she says. Is that all? What does that even mean? Just ask her. If she reacts like you just did, or doesn't say anything, then I'm sorry, but that psychiatric hold is your only option. But if she reacts in some other way, contact me again. The message didn't make much sense, but he didn't see any other way. I'd like to ask you a question. There was no response, of course. He continued, uncertain if she was even hearing him. Did you have it, and they didn't realize it? Or did you never have it? Which is it? Aha! Her eyes moved. Instead of looking down at the desk, she was looking at Shinjo. Shinjo was surprised, but did his best to hide it. Well, the girl stared at him as if trying to figure him out. And then a moment later, "Who are you?" Her words were quiet, but sharp. It was the same tone of voice that Shinjo used when he was interrogating a subject. "I'm a detective here at the station. What's your name?" She seemed to be thinking about something as she stared at him. Her mannerisms were just like his own again. It was the same way a detective faced a criminal, trying to gain every scrap of information from what he could see. And then she slowly opened her mouth. "Hine Arimura. I'm a student at Hekiho Academy." Huh. Well, isn't that interesting? I left the motorhome where I lived alone, and only then did I realize that it was morning, or that it was evening. The sunlight must have been pouring into my room, but I hadn't noticed. I didn't really remember when I'd gone to sleep or when I'd woken up. It's okay, right? I looked around to make sure that none of the scenery had changed, then walked up the steps in front of me. Miyashita Park was just a few minutes' walk away from Shibuya Station. It was also known as Homeless Park. This is where I lived after I left the dorm. The first floor was a huge parking structure, and the second story had a footstool field and a climbable wall. It had been mostly abandoned during the recovery efforts after the Shibuya earthquake. Arimura, my beloved, oh boy. After the quake, people who'd lost their family or who never had any family to begin with gathered here en masse. Mitake Park, which was right next door, was supposed to be the evacuation point for this area, but Miyashita had always been a mecca for the homeless, so everyone gathered here. Drink time. There we go. When people gathered, so did things. Containers filled with food, blankets, and tents, even the trailer for a motorhome that was left behind when its owner fled Shibuya. Every part of the park was overhauled to create a place for people to live. The parking lot, the futsal field, the climbing wall, etc. And then next thing anyone knew, there was a society there that was big enough that the government couldn't force them out. Then some group of idiots came out and tried and turn the place into temporary housing. That was shot down in less than a month. As a result, even though you could find beautifully rebuilt skyscrapers just a street away, Miyashita Park had become one of Japan's biggest slums. Oh, they'll do that, Cat Evie. Can I have this? I spoke to the man who sold newspapers, magazines, and everything else as I picked up a newspaper with today's date, October the 1st, on it. I don't think so, Soulcaster. I doubt they dubbed any of this. I don't think they have the budget for it. Oh, Taku, I don't see you buying newspapers often. Sure, take it. Can I? I've got plenty, and take a look. He showed me the snacks and alcohol at his feet. He must have sold a lot today. There were a lot of people in the park who had enough money that they could have stayed in a capsule hotel if they wanted to. Oh, if you're going to throw it away, do it somewhere else. They're getting annoying about garbage. I thanked him and went to leave. Hey Taku, off to pay the electric bill? Yeah, that's right. Then pay mine too. Tell them it's from Maddie on the south side. He handed me a 1,000 yen bill. I nodded, took it, and headed deeper into the park with my paper. Oh, so his name was Maddie. Miyashita Park was divided into north and south halves by road. If he said he was from the south, then that must mean there was a Maddie from the north side who I hadn't met yet. The administrative office on the south side. Just like the name implied, it was where all the administration was done for Miyashita Park. It kept things peaceful between the government and the park occupants, resolved disputes between the homeless, and maintained all the facilities at the park. I knew the woman there by her face, but not her name. I gave her the electric bill, which was due on the 1st of the month, along with Maddie's part. Life in the park might seem carefree and lawless from the outside, but it was actually much stricter than you'd find in some families. Alright, thanks. Nobody's going over their territory or trying to move in, right? Everyone who lived on the outer rim of the park, including me since I lived on the far south, had been asked by the management to keep an eye out for that. I think it's okay. When I looked earlier, I hadn't seen anything change around my place. It's rough out there lately, so take care. If you see someone you don't know, tell me right away. I didn't realize the anime adaptations got dubbed. Oh yeah, I didn't realize Spunk Chunsoft got the publishing rights. That might help it, yeah. Huh? You know about what happened in the Love Hotel, right? Oh, yes, I understand. I was startled, but quickly nodded. I suddenly felt like they were criticizing me for hiding something. The corridor that connected the north and south ends of the park. This place, looking down on Meiji Street, was the one part that hadn't really changed since before the earthquake. There were cracks here and there, but the government had forbidden people to put things here because it would ruin the view, and might not be safe. I leaned up against the rail and spread open the newspaper with the setting sun shining down on me. There was a column on the front page about the Love Hotel incident, but no new information. There was nothing in the article about the girl who was found at the scene, or how this could be related to what happened 6 years ago. Had they not figured that out yet? Or maybe they had and they just weren't announcing it. If it had something to do with the incident 6 years ago, then so did Don't Look at Me and Leaky Noise. Did that mean they weren't suicides? If the killer had driven them to suicide, then it was probably the same person behind 3 incidents. But was he working alone or part of a group? Or maybe people who were related somehow to the incident 6 years ago were killing themselves one after another. Maybe I should look at what the 3 cases had in common again. Damn it, what the hell? My hand went up to the new bandage on my cheek. I rubbed it several times to make sure that it was still there. I took out my smartphone. The data I recorded at the scene had been deleted by the police. I probably should have just counted myself lucky they didn't take the phone itself. I'd lost my biggest clue to the case. Maybe that's a clue I should just give up. Maybe that's a clue I should just give this up. Maybe this was just out of my league. Maybe it was stupid to get involved. Yes! Aw. That's a cute photo. And then I got a call on my phone. I checked the name and hit the answer button. Yes? Hello? What the? Is it you? They're here, at the usual seat. Thanks. As always, the waitress's appearance and manners were a mystery to me. I bowed to her and went to my seat. What a character design out of nowhere. Also, that looks like an actual picture of a bookshelf, of a manga shelf. I've seen that type of thing at Barnes and Noble too many times. Man, talk about a character design out of nowhere. Sarika was there already, reading a manga. She was fiddling with her Garo Froggy cell phone strap without realizing it as usual. It really was a strange habit and a nuisance to the people around her. Cafe Lax, or LAX, the preferred hangout of the newspaper club, was just a 10-minute walk from Shibuya Station. The owner was a manga fan, and the walls were lined with the stuff. There was free Wi-Fi, the prices were good, and if it wasn't crowded, you could sit there for hours as long as you bought a single drink. The most important part was that since it was in a hard-to-find spot, barely anybody from Hekiho knew about it. So I didn't have to worry about running into anyone I knew. As usual, there was barely anyone there. Just a single couple that appeared to be in college. I ordered my usual Mountain View and sat down. That still gets me, Mountain View. I ordered my usual Mountain View and sat down. What are you reading? Oh, Taku. I'm not sure what this is. Huh? I just grabbed it off the shelf. Sarika went and put the manga back on the shelf, then came and sat back down. Here, this is your uniform. None told me to clean it, so I did. That might be true, but things were different this time. After what I'd gone through... I mean, sure, what happened at the hotel was scary, but... Serica continued as if she knew exactly what I was thinking. Remember how scary it was when we used to go chasing after urban legends? Remember how you snuck into that hospital because it was an adventure? I nodded. I just dreamed about it. That was scary too, but even when you were crying, you said that the terror was something special because nobody else had experienced it. You were crying back then too. Was I? Here, finish it all. Random waitress. Oh, thank you. Serica took her glass of juice and gulped it down. Riveting conversation. So... I mean, so what? Come on. Oh, right. So anyway, I figured that you'd say that since you'd had an experience that no one else had, and that even if it was scary, this was your big chance. Her voice was light as she drank her juice, but her words didn't feel light at all. Something other people hadn't experienced. Something different from other people. Sometimes, I don't know if she's smart or dumb. I stared at Serica's face. How much did she understand about what she was saying? What? Oh, no, you can't have any. She moved the juice away from me. I was wrong. She probably didn't realize anything. Actually, she wasn't even thinking about anything. She really was dumb. Wow. I don't know about hearing that from a part-timer. Random person again? Right? Does he just not give a damn? Well, normally why would he? Okay, thanks. Hey, did I ever tell you about the comments from the Shibuya earthquake victims? What do you mean? I was pretty sure I'd told her a bunch of times. Well, whatever, time for a lecture. Remember how, just after the chaos when the earthquake calmed down, a ton of reporters started asking the victims for comments before the term Chaos Child Syndrome existed? Of course, I'd been in a coma for about a year after the earthquake, so I'd only investigated it after I woke up. Most of the interviews were about what good citizens we were. After that huge disaster, there was barely any violence or looting. They said this was amazing. And I think they were right. When they asked the victims what was the hardest part, most people were more concerned about others than themselves. They talked about how they couldn't contact their families and tell them they were safe, or how they couldn't give their children their favorite foods. But then one person said something different. I remember what they said word for word. It had left a huge impression on me. You outsiders have some nerve if you're telling us to hang in there. To be honest, I agreed completely. They said exactly what I was thinking. I didn't know who they were, but I admired them anyway. Those feelings were the exact opposite of all the excited, fired-up people on the outside. I think whoever said that was someone close to me. Not just someone who saw the whole thing on the internet. Not someone who just happened to be caught up in the earthquake. You mean one of your parents? Oh hey, the guys from the tennis club say they're coming to the drinking party after the festival. Seriously? Oh, then we definitely won't be able to drink at home. I was different. I was different than the people who just lived normal lives in Shibuya. I ripped the bandage off my cheek. The wound had closed up. My face was back to normal. I was back to normal. The case was right in front of me. I had a huge mystery to investigate. I wasn't about to just be caught up in something. As a right-sider, it was my job to jump right into the middle of all this information, right? So there's our excuse. This is why we have a character flaw for this guy. To have him be dumb enough to jump into this scary situation. Sure, I'm different. I can handle this. I mean, granted, he did go through a very traumatic experience, but yeah. I could feel something like excitement mixed with a sense of duty welling up inside me. I I couldn't stop myself from smiling. You might be put in danger again. Huh? You mean the case? I nodded. Sarika laughed a little strangely. And then for some reason, she patted me lightly on the shoulder. I didn't know what that meant, but I started to laugh too. Sarika nodded. Alright, let's start with the Love Hotel case then. Sarika took out her poke-com. She typed into it with a practiced hand. She seemed to be loading a video file. What's this? This is the video you took at the scene. I uploaded it to an online storage site before the police deleted it. Man, he's calling her dumb and she's way more useful than he is. Like, my God. By the time I got back home, the sun had long since set, and it was past 8 p.m. I realized that I'd barely eaten anything since arriving at the Love Hotel and suddenly felt very hungry, so I'd eaten a meal at LAX. Hey, I've been wondering since the last time I came here, did you change your hot water pot? It used to be more, oh, you made this into a closet. Sarika had followed me home. She started to glance around the room and offer her opinions on the way I was laid out. She would open drawers and be surprised even though there was nothing important inside, or look at new files about the cases and tell me their contents at a glance. She always was a little strange like that. She would be surprised by the most obvious things, but sometimes she would show startling insight. And wait, you're really excited about something, aren't you? She laughed another strange laugh. Is it that much fun to try and solve this case? It's more like it feels wrong to give up on something you want to do until you've really given it your all. No matter how it ends up, it's the only way anything matters. You're going to die someday, but you aren't dead right now. I see, I thought. She was right. A sound came from my PC. The copy operation was finished. Okay, now delete the original in the online storage. Huh? Why? Just because of what it is. I don't want anybody seeing it. This is my private storage, so it should be okay. Even so, I want there to be no chance that someone else can access it. Actually, delete the one on your poke-com too. Okay. Taku, what are you doing? Well, later, Cat Evie. Have a good night. She looked over at me while she rifled through my bookcases. We going positive or negative this time? Soy Sauce is saying negative. Soulcaster negative. Nelson goes positive. We could do neutral if we wanted to, but I figured we might as well see the extra scenes. This is sort of the gimmick of the game. Plus, it's easier to have the 2 options rather than 3. Alright, I am mostly seeing negative delusions here. Okay. We'll go negative this time. Guess we're going just back and forth. Making kakanto. Kakanto? What kind of food is that? Are you serious? It's an herbal drink. Gen gave it to me. It keeps you from vomiting. Wow, I'm amazed you know about something like that. Okay, how does this turn into a negative? Like, you knew how to make this strange herbal tea. And then some information I'd found before flashed across my mind. Of course, it was from... Oh, no, not Cool Cat Press. Of course, it was from Cool Cat Press. I'd read about it in a certain special they'd run. If you put eye drops into a beer, it will make a girl It will make a girl feel aroused. What the hell is wrong with this magazine? At the time, I hadn't believed it. In another issue, they said that eye drops and cola would make a girl go to sleep. Why is this magazine offering such terrible advice? I heard a rumor that it was all just an urban legend, though. But what would happen if you put eye drops into Kankanto? There was a stupid teenage girl who didn't even know what Kankanto was right in front of me. Should I try it? Oh my god. I prepared 2 cups like it was the most natural thing in the world, and why does this seem like it's more ridiculous than the positive version would have been? Like it was the most natural thing in the world and poured out the Kankanto I made. And then, being very careful not to let Sarika see me, I took the eye drops off the shelf. Now to just add a few drops of it to this, and maybe it would be enough to arouse even Sarika. Oh my god. I tried adding a few drops. But wait a second, Cool Cat's press hasn't said anything about how much to use. So I had no idea how much it would take to get any effect. It felt like you would need more than a few drops. Okay, I'd just have to add the whole bottle. Oh my god, this idiot. He's calling her an idiot, and yet he's the... The problem was how to make sure that Sarika didn't see me. I'm going to make yours now, so just sit there and wait. Really? Thanks. I've never had Kankanto before. Sarika did just what I told her. So easy. Then we were even doing the evil laughs. What the heck? While she sat on the sofa, I went around to where she couldn't see me and opened the lid on the eye drops, then poured the whole bottle in. Here you go. My heart felt like it was pounding fast. I tried to act normal as I handed her the cup. Blech, it smells terrible, like medicine. Well, Kankanto is herbal medicine anyway, that's just how it smells. It's probably really good for you. Sarika laughed. It was lucky for me that she was so stupid. Oh my god. This guy, I swear, his delusions make him just the worst. Okay, time to try it out. She put the cup to her lips with no hesitation. And then... lots of coughing. She started coughing. Yeah, I should have seen that coming. I must have added the wrong amount. I'd have to tell her what I had done later and apologize. Oh, she is totally going to die. Are you okay? Sarika wouldn't stop coughing. Her body was twisting in pain. The cup fell to the floor and spilled the Kankanto everywhere. You're so hot, Onoe. Hey, what? This wasn't normal. What's wrong? And then, all too suddenly, she coughed up blood. The red liquid stained the sofa, the floor, and me. What the hell? Was I not supposed to mix Kankanto and eye drops? Did I accidentally make something poisonous? Onoe, hey! I tried to pat her back with when her eyes suddenly rolled up into her head. She started to spasm and shake. All I could do was watch in shock. Soon she laid down on the bed, faced up, and stopped moving. Blood was still dripping from the side of her mouth. Onoe? She wasn't breathing. You're kidding me. You're dead? Tell me it's not true. Huh? What's not true? This guy is so dumb. Huh? Sarika was looking at me, head tilted in surprise. There was no blood or drool dripping from her mouth, and her eyes weren't rolled into the back of her head. Tell you what's not true. Oh, no, nothing. Are you lying to me about something? That's not it. Don't worry about it. Okay. Sarika just did what I told her. I couldn't tell if she was obedient or just didn't care. But for now, I was saved. I took a drink from the cup of Kankanto in my hands. It didn't taste like medicine. I hadn't been able to find any eye drops on the shelf, so I'd just given it to her normally. It was wrong to think about experimenting on a friend. Yeah. Anyway, Gen's such a nice guy. I like him. I wish he wouldn't get drunk so often, though. That just seems like a weird, like, let's go off into this territory for no apparent reason. But he's your only real friend here at the park, right? So he really is a good guy. Was that why? Well, he did help me out a lot. Okay, it's deleted. Serica put away her Pokecom. Alright. I booted up the laptop next to the wall and sat down in the chair that folded out into a bed. As I went to load the video file into the player software, I happened to glance at its length. 26 minutes? Were we in the room were we in that room that long? Oh, Serica said. I don't think so. Right after you passed out, the police arrived, but I was sick and throwing up. At some point, I grabbed your phone and put it in my pocket. And then when I was in the police car, I realized I had it. That was when I turned off the record button. So that was it. Come to think of it, I hadn't asked how it had happened. I'm amazed you had time to upload it to the storage before the police deleted it. Excuse me. Ugh. Man, my throat gets dry. Serica nodded as if she felt the same way. It was blind luck. When we got to the station, I got sick again, so I ran to the bathroom, and that's when I got the idea. No, I'm really amazed. I really was. I'd passed out in the hotel, and the next thing I knew, I was at the station. Supposedly, I walked from the patrol car to my room, but my memory was vague and hazy. I took a big sip from the cup to choke down the urge to vomit and slowly let it sink into my stomach. If the recording was successful, then I should see what I'd seen then. It had happened 2 days ago, but it had left such a strong impression on me that I didn't feel like that much time had passed at all. I took a deep breath and told myself it was time to do this. I looked over at Serica. Okay. She nodded back at me and glared at the monitor. Okay. I tried to steady my slightly shaking finger as I clicked the file. Oh boy, here we go. The first thing I noticed was that sound. The peaceful sound of the music box that filled the room from that spinning bed. A dark, gloomy room, a curtain in the back, and a rotating bed behind it. It was that room. The same emotions I experienced before came flooding back to me through the blurry screen. I could sense my own hesitation from my gasping breaths. Serica grabbed my shoulder at the sudden sound. It's okay, I think that's just where I made the floor creak. Oh, yeah, I see. The camera was slowly moving toward the back of the room. At some point, my breathing matched the breathing in the recording. It scared me, so I pulled away a little and took a deep breath to isolate myself from the person in the video. I heard that sound. The sound of the wire creaking as the bed spun. I could feel the panic coming through the screen. I wasn't sure what to do. I'm going to keep going. I could tell that Serica was gulping a little. As I spoke, the camera kept going forward. I could hear Serica's soft gasp in the video. The police officer and that woman were lying on the floor. I hadn't realized it at the time, but the glass was scattered all around. Damn. The camera quickly panned without warning. First, fixing the camera in a single location while changing the direction it faces. Okay. It was that bed. The silhouette behind the curtain was probably that man. The angle was off and wasn't pointing directly at the bed. At that point, I hadn't really been aware of the smartphone. Let's get out of here. Now. I heard a dull thud and the screen went black. Huh? Did you drop it? Probably. It felt like I tripped and fallen backwards. The phone had probably fallen from my hands. Was it black because the camera had fallen face down? Taku, the door won't open. Serika's voice sounded like it was a little far away. I was still picking up sound, evidently. I could hear myself trying to open the door and swearing when I failed. That's right, I'd been fighting with the door then. And then... You would have thought the police... They would have thought the police would have kept this. Like, did they copy it from his phone before they deleted it? They had to have, because this is important evidence and kind of shows that they were telling the truth about the knocking. My body shivered as if it had gone numb. This was... I have not, Sonic Joe, I have not heard any of that before. I could hear it. Hey, you heard it, right? Yeah. I could hear it. The police said the surveillance cameras hadn't shown anyone else coming into the room, but I could hear it. That constant, rhythmic knocking. Somehow it made me feel uneasy and scared. Someone had been on the other side of that door. And suddenly, the screen moved. What? Taku, we need to get out of here. It was showing the man on the bed. The screen was blurry, but the man was almost exactly in the center of the viewfinder. Had I picked up the smartphone? I couldn't remember. Taku. In the video, I ignored Serika's voice and kept pointing the camera at the man. Oh yeah, this part where he was just transfixed. I could hear my own rough breathing and remembered how I felt then. And then suddenly I heard a snap. The screen moved violently for a second, and then for a moment it showed the girl. Then the angle changed again, and it stopped moving. The screen was covered in red blood, but... Is that the ceiling? What I was looking at was probably the room's ceiling. Since it didn't move at all, this was probably where I'd passed out and dropped it. Just like before, the camera was still recording the sound. I could hear Serika vomiting and what sounded like someone falling over. What? Hey, what happened here? It caught the police officers running into the room. They were asking Serika what was going on. She was probably the only one there who was still conscious. Shortly after, the screen went black. Serika had probably put the phone into her pocket, just like she'd said. I could hear an irritating noise that must have been the sound of the phone scraping the skirt's fabric. The screen stayed black, but it kept picking up the nearby sound. Then, at the very end, there was a quick shot of the inside of a patrol car. I realized that at some point I'd leaned my body toward the screen. I sat back in my chair. So soy sauce is with a bit of thoughts on Takaru. The cafe scene in the flashback earlier contextualizes a lot of Takaru's elitism as a way to cope with how pathetic he really is. Him having a rough childhood was a catalyst to present his mindset of because he survived through something rougher, he's better than others, which causes him to be desperate to try to consume as much information as possible on the internet, and when the murders occur, to solve the case, as dumb as it is. He's desperate to be special and get validations from others. This is why Takaru hit really hard for me personally, as someone who used to unfortunately share a similar mentality as him with similar circumstances so many years back. To see a story not shy away from how toxic his behavior can be felt like a splash of cold water in my face. Oh wow. That's really interesting. I'd known what was going to happen, but this was still hard. To be honest, I was lucky that the phone was dropped and a lot of it wasn't clearly recorded. I didn't feel as much of an urge to vomit as I expected, but I was still sweating from a nasty, unpleasant feeling. I gulped down the last bit of liquid in my cup. Onoe, are you okay? I asked Serika. And then... Hey, Taku, did you say something weird at the end of the video? Again, she's smarter than him. I swear to God. What? Weird? The whole thing was weird. Not a second of it was normal. Once we went further into the room, Serica moved the mouse and jumped backwards in the video. I couldn't tell whether she was tough or simply dense, or maybe just felt like it was nothing but a video, but she advanced through the shocking scenes with no hesitation. Here, look, outside the window. Hmm? Yeah? I could see the wall of the Love Hotel across the street from the open window. There was something there. How the heck did she notice that? It's that Buddha. Okay. I love when you, like, little background details that you didn't notice the first time is actually can see. Like that gives good chill. Like I got hair standing up on my arm from that. Love that kind of stuff. Then they pull that stuff off well. What is this? A bug maybe? If there was a bug that big in it, Kurisu would go blow up the whole building. She hated bugs. Then maybe some graffiti? Why was her first answer a bug and then her second answer the sensible one? No, wait, I've seen this before. I switched from my player software to my editing software, then blew up that part of the screen. Damn it, I could make it out, but it was so far away that it was blurry. The resolution was too low. See, it is a bug. It's spreading its wings. It is not. I've seen this somewhere before. What? I turned around at the loud noise. I have returned! Sorry to keep you waiting. I guess this is Gen. There was a drunk man with a bottle of booze in his hand. Give me a break. Of course no one was waiting. Make less noise when you come in. Hey, Gen! Thanks for your help. My help? You told me about the thing at the Love Hotel, remember? Oh, did I? Well, it doesn't matter. Something happened. Great. Taku wants to be a reporter after all. I didn't really. Every day I supposedly wanted to be a different thing. Last time I was a movie director. I have returned. Hey, listen, Taku. Look what I've acquired, so that I may remain me. Huh? Where is it? He started patting down the pockets of his very old coat. This annoying old man was Gen. He was the elder ruler of this park and the CEO of a company with a 3 billion yen a year salary and the best friend of my father, Jiro, at least according to him. My dad's name wasn't even Jiro. He was related to a clan of foreign nobles, and so if he ever needed to, he could summon a foreign special forces team to do his bidding. Except last week, his bed had been taken over by a stray dog, and he'd come to stay with me. It's gone? My most important thing is gone. Crap! How am I supposed to piss? What the heck? Hey Gen, don't take off your pants! Gen was always loud when he got drunk, and when he got really drunk, he was louder. Today, he wasn't very drunk. Oh my god. I had no idea what he was like when he was sober. I've never seen it happen, or heard of it happening. Sometimes, or often actually, at least once a week, he would come by my room drunk, talk for a while, and then leave to search the park for more alcohol. I found it, Missy. Look at this. I'm not going to look, absolutely not. He was obnoxious as hell, to put it mildly, but I couldn't chase him away. Actually, I couldn't complain about him much at all. When I left the dorm half a year ago, I ended up in the bottom half of Miyashita Park. Since the upper half kept the rain off, the bottom half was one of the most popular spots. A lot of the reason I was able to get this spot, and even get this motorhome, was because of Gen. You're awful, that's disgusting. When I lived in the dorm, I'd done some cooking for the homeless in Miyashita Park as part of our volunteer activities. Gen had remembered that. A nobleman does not forget his debts, was all he said. And then somehow, I'd been given this place. He was also the one who taught me how to get by in this place. Oh, right, Taku, look at this! Want to buy it? Gen took something out of his pocket. Oh no. I ripped a copy of my favorite magazine out of his hands. I quickly glanced over to Serica. I hate you, Gen. She was mumbling that over and over to herself. I thought she liked him. Good, she didn't see it. I breathed out a sigh of relief and hid it someplace nearby. How much? Gen raised a single finger. This was one rule, for example. It was the first thing I learned in the park. The homeless would never, ever ask you for money. It was one thing they could never say. Money was either found lying on the ground or earned by people, or earned by working or selling things. It wasn't something other people gave you. I took out a 100 yen coin from my wallet and gave it to him. Gen grabbed it and put it in his pocket like he didn't really care. Cup! Hey, I see that a lot lately. He was looking at the PC monitor as he spoke. For a moment, I didn't know what he meant. Huh? Huh? My eyes met Sarika's for just a moment. The monitor was still displaying that blurry, blown-up image. He saw it a lot? Hey, Gen! You know what this is? I want to play some baseball. He was in his own little world. What was this guy's problem? I got closer to him. Gen, have you seen this before? Huh? I mean, it's everywhere you look, like in front of the station. Wait, what's the station again? Huh? You mean the train station, right? Shibuya Station. You know, wait. Taku, it was in the last thing you showed me, right? Huh? You know, a few years ago, when you did a stakeout in this karaoke box and were the first person to get something or other. That was last weekend, actually. When I'd been uploading the photos of the crime scene I took from the karaoke box, Ken had come by and seen them. This was it. Oh, Taku, look! It was an image of the karaoke box I'd hidden in to take pictures of the crime scene. It was on the 5th floor. I could see the same mark. I switched from the player software to the editor software just like before and magnified that part of the image. Oh, wow. I definitely didn't notice that the first time. And then I realized what it was. That's right. I had seen this thing before. And just like Gen said, it was something you could find all over Shibuya. Something that had been there for a long time. This is a sumo wrestler sticker? Why sumo wrestler? It looks like a Buddha to me. Scene change. As I saw the club room for the first time in 3 days, I was stunned. Man, I did my best. I'd been waiting all morning to tell Ito the big discovery I'd made yesterday. I stayed up almost all night finding all the information I could on it, and then forced myself to wait until school ended to tell him. I figured that just sending pictures to his phone or trying to explain it in words would just confuse him. I wanted to stand in front of the board in the club room with all the information we'd learned so far pinned up on it and use the club time to really work through it. But there was nothing there at all. I could only think of one person who would do that. Kurisu? When we left yesterday, she said it was too dangerous and that she wasn't going to let you do it. Was it because of what happened in the Love Hotel? In as angry as a voice I could muster, I said, "Why didn't you stop her?" I told you I tried. She told me to shut up though, and I did. You should have done something. Don't tell me to do the impossible. Could you have done something? Don't tell me to do the impossible. Oh my god. Ito shrugged as if to say, see? Just imagining it scared me a little. Doing something about Kurisu was absolutely impossible. No one in Hekiho was capable of such a thing. I pointed to the PC on the desk. What about the data? Just consider yourself lucky she didn't physically destroy the whole hard disk. So the data was gone too. Ito was probably joking, but if Kurisu thought she needed to do it, she would have. Onoe, what are you printing out? Here you go. Sarika dropped a stack of papers on the desk. I looked down and saw it was images and articles about the case. It was the ones that were uploaded to the newspaper club server. Where did you get these? Aren't you always telling me that a true right-sider needs to make sure his stuff is backed up? I mean, you've got backups too, right? Well, yes, but... Serica flipped through the papers. Again, Serica, most useful character! For some reason, the image quality drops if I print it off my Pocom. I'll re-upload it to the server. Wait a second. Serica went to stretch a cable from her Pocom to the PC, but I quickly stopped her. Is this image quality good enough? That's not it. I mean, the image quality's fine, but I'd rather you didn't upload it to the server for a while. I glanced at Ito as I spoke. The newspaper club server could be accessed from any PC in the school as long as you knew the password. Kurisu was spending her time at the student council getting ready for the culture festival, but there was a chance she might look at the server for some reason. Ito nodded in agreement, a serious look on his face. You two are too afraid of Non. She's nice, right, Hana? I am Groot. See? See what? Was Kazuki agreeing? Was she pounding down on the she was pounding down on the keyboard and mouse really hard? That's because she likes you two. That's right. We visited every crepe stall in Shibuya together. Non knows all about sweets. Serica puffed out her chest, very proud of this information. I didn't care in the slightest. And either way, I think Non's going to find out. That was probably true, yeah. If we kept following the case as part of our work with the newspaper club, Kurisu was smart enough to catch on. It's okay. She'll understand once you talk to her. I highly doubt that. I simulated a variety of situations in my mind. Oh. Well, at least he's coming out and saying it. Alright, well, do we want Kurisu to be positive or negative about this situation? I mean, we've been going back and forth, so I guess it's time for a positive if we want to just declare one. But I'm always curious what you guys say. Oh, really? Negative again. Yeah, negative right off the bat. Negative it is. This was something that Serica had said and that I'd known about too. So would buying her something she'd like from a famous sweets shop be enough to win her over? Would bribery work on someone as prim and proper as the student council president? It was worth a shot. It was worth a try. How are you going to get a negative from buying chocolates? Is she going to die from like a chocolate? I don't know, whatever. Unless we could win her over, we weren't going to be able to continue with the case. Okay, let's go buy something to bribe her with. Ito, find me the top 3 most famous sweets places in Shibuya. Leave it to me. The vice president's heart is yours. It was time for the mission to begin. The heck? So, here you go. This is a present for you, Kurisu. I knew that Kurisu was staying late after school to get ready for the festival. I handed her the present I just bought. Ito had found me a pancake place near Shibuya Station. It was a popular store where there was always a line of girls outside. I heard it was one of the few places where you could get pancakes for carryout, so I quickly chose it. Standing in line with the girls for an hour was almost torture, but I somehow managed to do it. Is this pancake from Eggs and Thanks? Eggs and Thanks. Oh my gosh. Yeah, why? What are you planning? You don't need to say that after I was nice enough to go buy you something. You've never brought me a present before. You're after something, aren't you? Ito, what's going on here? I guess we're bribing you so you'll let us keep working on the case? You asshole! You could have put up more of a fight than that. I'm sorry, Miyashiro. I just can't fight the power of her stare. I'm glad you got me something, but I can't accept this. Kurisu handed the pancakes back to me. She was always so serious about this stuff. You two enjoy them. They're very good. Her face was smiling, but her eyes weren't. Well, that was like the least negative we could have probably had. Yeah, that's what would happen. Kurisu would see through any attempt at bribery I made. It was a bad idea to try and buy her off. Why would I want to split a pancake dinner with Ito anyway? Or would it work better if Ito didn't go with me? Okay, I've got it. Huh? You sure? Ito must have been really surprised by my answer because he badly overreacted. Excuse me. I didn't think you were so brave. I'm always brave when it counts. Just don't put anything on the server yet. I want to be cautious. Okay. And for now, we'll put the information on the board, but when it's done, we'll take it off. Things are going to get tricky. I think that's our catchphrase, just okay. And for now, let's not tell Kurisu about the case. We can keep an eye on things until they calm down, and then bring it up when she's in a good mood after eating something sweet. Okay. That's just reminding me of Kai, because I'll say something to Kai and he'll just go, okay. Aren't you just being a pussy? Oh my god. What? I'm not being a pussy. I'm choosing the method most likely to succeed. If you call me that, then the definition... Oh my god. Right, I get it. Onoe, I'm going to put up the map. Hold that end. Okay. Now I'm just thinking of it's either Kai or Phineas and Ferb. Okay! Ito and Serika took out the big map we used for the board. This is the best way to persuade her. He didn't get it at all. There was no way I could persuade Kurisu if I tried to go after her head on. Wait, Miyashiro, let me be serious for a second here. He had a very serious tone in his voice as he hung up the top of the map. Huh? I've been serious the whole time. Is it okay if I keep following the case? I told you I'll persuade her eventually. I'm not being a pansy. I'm just being cautious. That's not what I'm talking about. You saw something really bad, right? In the Love Hotel. Serika froze midway through the process of taping down the bottom of the map. So that was it. I hadn't told Ito anything about the Love Hotel. I hadn't told him about what I'd seen or experienced there. I tried my best to give him a cheerful smile. It's fine, no problem. This is way too big a scoop not to chase, right? Ito didn't answer. He stared at me as if trying to figure me out. And then he relaxed and laughed a little. Well, I figured as much when we talked on the phone. He was probably talking about the call I made yesterday. After I made my discovery, I called Ito and asked him to find all the information he could about the Love Hotel case. It had already been 3 days since it had happened. I hadn't been really following it at all, so I'd asked Ito to put together what he could find. Okay, all set. Oh, it is a meme of the fan base of Onoe saying okay? I figured. Serika finished pinning the map on the board. Okay, let's get started. And I think that's a good place to stop. We'll go over the discoveries of that Takaru made, bring Ito up to speed, all that. But so far, Serika is best character. Her and Kurisu. And yeah, let's save. And we're still in chapter 1. How many chapters are in this? Out of curiosity. I'm glad you all enjoyed the stream. Really do appreciate that. Of course, we'll be back next Sunday for even more of Chaos Child as we get to more of this case and seeing what's going on. I don't know what we'll discover or anything like that. Oh, okay. 11 chapters, but chapter 1 is by far the longest. Twice as long as most. Jeez. That's pretty crazy. But, yeah. we'll just have to see what happens as we continue on. Certainly getting a lot of different characters and expanding upon things. So I'm still very much intrigued. And yes, absolutely okay is going to be our raid message. Of course, we'll also be back tomorrow for the beginning of a new playthrough. And as you guys voted, we're going to be starting with Wario World. Get through that game and then try, and then loop back around for Outer Wilds. So that's the plan right out there. Probably not Sonic Joe. We rated Space Padre last time, so I like to change it up. So if there's any other suggestions beyond Space Padre, I'm open to them. RL Richie. Playing Pokemon Gold. Sure, why not? And yes, Stacey, your request tomorrow got kind of bumped up due to quirkiness, but we'll loop back around. So yeah, we'll get that all taken care of. So yeah, there's our. We'll start that raid up, and yeah, that's about it. So I will see you guys tomorrow night for the beginning of Wario World, and next Sunday for more Chaos Child. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, bye.